Hello, beautiful listeners and wonderful viewers tuning in on YouTube. Ooh, it's your favorite ray of sunshine, Mira, ready to kick off another wild ride into the unknown. You know, between our last chat and today, I had this absolutely tragicomic moment. I was trying to recreate a traditional dance move I'd seen on a documentary involving a lot of spinning. And I ended up spinning right into my living room plant. Whoa, my poo monster ray is now a list monster ray in the lot more flat era.
Mira, I can absolutely picture it, the blurred colors of your shirt, the frantic flailing, and then that sad thud as you embraced your leafy friend. You know, I had a similar, albeit less dramatic, run-in with gravity this morning. My coffee, which is usually my trusty copilot for the day, decided it wanted to experience life outside the cup. Just a tiny splash, mind you, but enough to make me question if I was having a caffeine shower. Or just a Monday. And I thought my cat was Judge Y.
Oh, come on, Leo, at least I commit to the dance. You and your coffee, it's a love story for the ages, but sometimes love gets a little messy. Speaking of unexpected journeys, today we're taking you on an epic, no, truly epic voyage, without a need for a plan-smashing incident, thankfully. We're diving deep into a comparison of two countries that couldn't be more different, yet both hold incredible stories and unique experiences.
Indeed, friends. We're about to unravel the mysteries and marvels of Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. Two nations, two distinct worlds, one comprehensive guide. If you're out there pondering a trip, a move, or perhaps even marrying into a culture you know little about, well, this podcast is going to be your absolute go-to. We're here to answer those burning questions that keep you up at night, like which one offers a more serene mountains cape versus a bustling coastal vibe? Or where can I find the most unexpected culinary delight?
We're not just throwing facts at you, we're bringing you stories, insights, and maybe a few chuckles along the way. Oh, whether you're considering a life-changing relocation, an adventurous travel plan, or just satisfying your boundless curiosity, we promise to be your trusty companions on this journey. We want to know what you think too, so please leave your questions and comments below once this episode hits YouTube. Your feedback truly fuels our quest to bring you more fascinating comparisons, all powered by the global insights from Jetoff AI.
Jetoff AI, always there to pick up the pieces of our slightly scatterbrained travel plans. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It's like giving us a virtual pat on the back. And who doesn't love a good pat on the back, right? We're going to touch on everything from general security and crime rates to the vibrant cultures, diverse landscapes, and daily life in these intriguing places. So, buckle up, grab your beverage and try not to spill it. Mira.
Our current topic, we compare general safety, crime statistics, and the cultural factors shaping them. From solid data to fascinating insights and real-life stories, we bring the numbers to life. Discover each country's unique aspects and how they tackle crime. Whoa. And our countries today are Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. Whoa. That's quite the duo for a safety discussion, isn't it, Leo? My mind just went adventure mode, but also extra cautious mode at the same time. I mean, I was trying to find a shortcut at dusk and ended up face to face.
Mira, your turf war sounds more like a gentle disagreement compared to what we're actually discussing. Ouch. But you're right. Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea certainly present unique challenges when we talk about safety. My first thought isn't about sandwiches, but more like, did I remember to zip all the pockets on my backpack? Did I remember to zip all the pockets on my backpack? And is that coffee strong enough to fuel a strategic retreat?
Absolutely, Leo. That's a crucial distinction. It's not just about a pickpocket trying to snatch your wallet. It's about a whole different layer of systemic issues that affect everyday life. But even within those challenging environments, you often find incredible resilience and community bonds. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who have lived or traveled there think about how people navigate those complexities. Do you guys find strength in smaller, tight-knit communities?
You're right, the human spirit's ability to adapt is incredible. Speaking of community, in many parts of Afghanistan, tribal and community structures play a huge role in local safety. They often provide a form of informal justice or security where formal systems might be weak or mistrusted. It's not always pretty, but it's a reality. Then, when we look at Papua New Guinea's general safety, we're talking about very different dynamics. Here, it's often more about tribal violence and high rates of violence and high rates and high rates and high rates of violence.
Oh, that sounds like something out of a Pulp Fiction novel. But in all seriousness, that sounds genuinely intimidating. When you mention tribal violence, it really highlights how local cultural factors profoundly shape safety. It's not just a universal crime rate number, is it? It's specific, deeply rooted challenges. I once tried to mediate a fight between two pigeons over a breadcrumb on the sidewalk. Oops, didn't end well for the breadcrumb, or for my naive peacemaking efforts.
So I think that we can conquer that. Your mediation skills might be better suited for less feathered disputes, Mira. Ouch! Papua New Guinea's diverse cultural landscape with over 800 indigenous languages means that these local dynamics are incredibly varied and sensitive. What might be safe in one village could be a no-go zone a few kilometers away due to historical tribal animosities. This makes general advice quite tricky. It's not a one-size-fits-all safety brief.
Yes, Leo. That's exactly it. It's about understanding the nuances. For Afghanistan, while conflict is a huge factor, the actual crime rates, meaning things like street crime or burglary in certain areas, might be overshadowed by the larger security concerns. It's a difficult topic because we don't want to oversimplify or generalize. We're trying to compare apples and oranges that are both currently in a blender, you know. But seriously, for anyone considering travel, it's crucial to check current advisories on reliable sites, and from reliable sites.
Good point, Mira. It's less about comparing which one has more crime, and more about understanding the types of risks. For Afghanistan, the primary concerns revolve around terrorism, kidnapping, and armed conflict, making any travel high risk. For Papua New Guinea, particularly in urban areas in some highlands regions, violent crime like armed robbery, carjacking, and sexual assault are significant issues. It often boils down to vigilance and especially for foreigners.
While both countries present significant safety challenges, the nature of those challenges is quite different. While one is shaped by ongoing conflict and political instability, and the other by deeply ingrained socio-economic factors and local cultural dynamics leading to violent crime. Oh, it truly emphasizes how complex the world is beyond our immediate surroundings. And it also reminds me that even in places we think are safe, we still need basic awareness. Like, don't leave your phone on the cafe table when you get up to do a spontaneous dance break.
Mira, your spontaneous dance breaks are probably a bigger safety risk than most things you'd encounter. Oops. But you're right. Basic awareness is universal. Whether you're in a bustling market in Kabul or a crowded street in Port Moresby, keeping an eye on your belongings, avoiding isolated areas, and being generally aware of your surroundings are non-negotiable.
Hey, those pigeons were fierce. Ouch. But truly understanding these broader safety landscapes for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea is less about judging and more about informing. It's about recognizing the real complexities and preparing accordingly. for those who might live, work, or somehow find themselves there. And if you're looking for practical travel safety tips beyond pigeons, check out the articles on Jejol Fai. They're really helpful.
Indeed. While these countries present serious safety considerations, they also have rich cultures and resilient people. But for the purpose of general safety and crime rates, it's about being brutally honest about the prevailing risks. It's a topic that demands respect and a realistic assessment, not just a casual shrug. And I think we've managed to give our listeners a good, albeit sobering overview.
It's incredible, isn't it? How much the world holds, and how we get to unpack these places right here in our studio. Today, we're looking at something quite profound: political stability and social harmony in Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. It's a big topic, but so important for anyone dreaming of travel or, just understanding the world beyond their coffee cup.
Beyond my coffee cup. Beyond my coffee cup. Mira, you really know how to make a comedian squirm bringing up topics that even my best jokes would politely tiptoe around. Oops, we're talking about Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. I mean, one's known for its mountain ranges and, well, complex history. And the other, for being so wonderfully remote it practically whispers adventure or lost luggage.
Oh, come on, Leo. You're always finding humor in the most unexpected places. And yes, both countries have such rich, albeit challenging narratives when it comes to stability. Afghanistan, with its long layered history of various political transitions and external influences, faces a unique set of circumstances. The concept of a central government maintaining consistent control across diverse tribal and ethnic groups has always been, shall we say, a work in progress. Wow, this can certainly impact daily life and the overall feeling of harmony.
Work in progress is a diplomatic way of putting it, Mira. From my observational standpoint, watching the news cycles, it sometimes feels less like a work in progress, and more like a complex improv show, where the script keeps changing mid-scene. And for anyone trying to figure out where they stand, that's quite a challenge. The social harmony really stems from that foundational political structure. Isn't it a constant dance between different factions?
8 Ripple Espresso for sure. But moving to Papua and New Guinea, the dynamics shift, don't they here? We're looking at an island nation with incredible geographical challenges and hundreds of distinct tribal groups, each with their traditions and languages. Well, it's less about a singular national political struggle and more about local regional governance and how these diverse communities interact. Sometimes it's a beautiful mosaic and other times there are local disputes often called tribal fights.
Tribal fights. Oh, sounds like my family reunion, but with sharper objects and less passive aggression. Papua New Guinea's situation is fascinating because, while it has a parliamentary democracy, the real power, or at least significant influence, can still reside within these traditional community structures. So harmony there is often negotiated at a very local level rather than purely dictated by national policy. It's like having 100 tiny governments, all tiny governments, all tiny governments.
That's a great point, Leo. And for our listeners out there, it really highlights how different stability can look. In Afghanistan, the challenge often lies in central authority and external perceptions, while in Papua New Guinea, it's the intricate balance of local customs and the push for national unity across vast diversity. Ooh. I'm certain that our listeners, those brave souls who ventured into these territories, would agree that understanding these nuances is key.
Agreed, Mira. It's not about slapping a stable or unstable label and moving on. It's about recognizing the intricate tapestry of human interaction and governance. And for anyone researching such complex places, I'd recommend diving deep. You can find more comprehensive insights on places like Jeddah AI, for example, which compiles detailed country profiles. Because let's be honest, my stand-up routine on the politics of lost socks isn't quite as informative.
Your lost socks routine is legendary. But yes, understanding these foundational elements is crucial for a meaningful travel or living experience. Whether it's navigating different societal expectations in Kabul or understanding local community leaders in Port Moresby. It's less about avoiding challenges and more about embracing the world's incredible diversity and knowing how to respectfully engage with it.
So in essence, when we talk political stability and social harmony for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, we're really talking about two very different stories of resilience, adaptation, and continuous negotiation. Neither is a simple postcard picture, but both offer deep lessons in human complexity and cultural endurance.
Exactly. It's a reminder that every nation has its own rhythm. And sometimes that rhythm isn't complex, just peace. Well, after discussing all that political drama, let's pivot to something a little more grounded, shall we? Like, can you actually afford to live here? We're diving into the economic conditions and cost of living in Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would agree with me. This is a topic that hits close to home.
Right. From political fireworks to fiscal realities. You know, Mira, I always say money talks, but in some places it just whispers. In Afghanistan, for instance, you've got an economy that's like a stubbornly tangled kite string, always a struggle to get it soaring. It's been heavily reliant on aid and agriculture, with things like wheat and opium being surprisingly big players. Oops, not that I endorse the latter for economic growth, just stating facts. For expats, if you're not with an NGO or a diplomatic get.
Ow. But imagine the adventure of finding a job there, Leo. You'd be like an economic treasure hunter. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Wouldn't you say that even in challenging economic landscapes, there's always an opportunity to make a difference? The cost of living for locals, for basic goods anyway, can be incredibly low. A cup of chai and a local bread? Practically free. But for an expat, securing comfortable housing in a safe compound.
Jumping jacks, Mira, more like an involuntary financial interpretive dance. You're paying for walls, security guards, and the privilege of not having to haggle for every grain of rice. It's a stark contrast where local costs are minimal, but any semblance of Western comfort comes with a premium. And let's be real, your expat's salary might be great, but it often dictates how isolated your experience has to be for safety. It's not exactly bargain hunting paradise for everything. Oops.
Speaking of beasts, Papua New Guinea is just bursting with natural resources. I mean, gold, copper, oil. Guess it sounds like a pirate's dream treasure chest. Oh, it's got so much potential. It almost makes you want to pack a shovel and a map. Though, I'd probably just end up digging up my car keys. For job opportunities, it seems like if you're not in mining or energy, you might be helping out in development or healthcare. It's definitely a place where specialized skills shine.
Shine, or get covered in mud, depending on which part of the island you're on. PNG's economy is rich in resources, but it faces massive challenges with infrastructure and governance. As for cost of living, you'd think with all that gold, things would be affordable, right? Nope. Ouch. Port Moresby, especially, is notoriously expensive. Think imported goods, secure housing, everything just about triple the price you'd expect. It's like they charge you for the oxygen.
Whoa, oxygen tax? But it's a new one. But truly, for expats, it's often a high salary to match the high cost in the remote, challenging environment. So you might save a lot, but your day-to-day spending on just about everything will make your bank account feel like it's on a very intense diet. It's an interesting balancing act. High earnings, but equally high expenses just to live comfortably and safely. What's your take, Leo? Would you rather have extremely low local costs with high SIS with strong earning potential?
That's like asking if I prefer my coffee with too much sugar or too much salt. Both scenarios present their own unique absurdities. In Afghanistan, your money might buy you a lot of local tea, but not necessarily a stroll in the park. In PNG, your bank account might look impressive, but a carton of milk could cost you an arm and a leg. Ouch! I suppose it comes down to what kind of dish is wrong. Please let us know, and this cup of coffee doesn't cost me a gold nugget. And if you guys think cost me a gold nugget,
Speaking of coffee and gold nuggets, I bet some of our listeners would try to find a way to make a coffee gold nugget hybrid to make a fortune in either country. But in all seriousness, both Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea present incredibly distinct economic landscapes. For Afghanistan, the job market for expats is very niche, often tied to development or security sectors, and the cost of living varies wildly between local necessities and expat-specific security-enhanced lifestyles.
yeah, Mira. It's like two separate economies running side by side, rarely intersecting unless an expat is trying to buy a really good carpet. And for Papua New Guinea, it's all about those lucrative natural resources, but the high cost of living, especially in urban centers, means that even with a substantial salary, you're not exactly living like royalty unless you brought your own castle. It's certainly a testament to human resilience and the global economy's unpredictable nature.
Well, talking about accommodation in Afghanistan and Papua, I'm already imagining a tiny, colorful hut with a pet goat. But seriously, it's not always easy to find those classic hotel booking websites for places off the beaten path, right?
Oh, classic hotel booking websites. Well, Mira, you're an optimist. I'd be happy if I could just find a working internet connection to search for a hut, let alone book it. I'm certain our listeners who've actually been there are chuckling right now. It's more like find a strong-walled compound or a very brave friend with a spare room.
You're right, Leo. Wow. It's not exactly browse and click. In places like Kabul, if you're an expat, you're often looking at secure compounds. Imagine trying to explain to your family that your new apartment comes with a guard tower and a very serious-looking gate. It's less about the thread count and more about the security count, you know. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you prioritize comfort or safety in these kinds of locations?
Exactly. And the quality, well, that's relative, isn't it? In Afghanistan, particularly outside those expat bubbles, you're often looking at more traditional homes. Think simple structures, maybe less plumbing than you're used to, and a real chance your shower might be a bucket. Ouch. It's all part of the authentic experience, right?
Oops, you're making it sound like a wilderness survival show. But hey, that can be part of the adventure. Oh, speaking of adventure, let's swing over to Papua New Guinea. Here, in cities like Port Moresby, the word expensive takes on a whole new meaning for accommodation. Wow, you're talking about rents that could make a New Yorker faint, all for a house that might still have its fair share of, let's say, local wildlife visitors.
Local wildlife visitors. That's a diplomatic way of saying your new roommate is a geeko, and his rent is paid in bugs. The cost in PNG is mind-boggling. Imagine needing a second mortgage just to rent a bedroom apartment in a secure complex. I mean, do they polish the air you breathe there? The quality can be high in those expat-focused places, but you pay a premium for security and reliable utilities. It's like paying for a 5-star hotel just to feel safe having a cup of coffee.
Well, I'm certain that our listeners living in PNG would agree with me finding affordable, decent housing is a national sport. But away from the cities, it's a completely different story. Many people live in traditional stilt houses, which are quite ingenious for the local climate. It's not about luxury, but about function and living with the land. Imagine building your own home with local materials. No IKEA involved. Wow, you can even check out images on Jeddah if you want to see what I mean.
No IKEA. Oh, Mira, you're breaking my heart. Mira, you're breaking at a spectrum. On one end, you have very basic, often self-built housing. On the other, ridiculously expensive, fortified compounds. The middle ground seems to be a mythical beast. Finding a well-maintained place with stable electricity and water in either country can feel like winning the lottery. I mean, I once stayed in a place where the water stopped mid-shampoo. Dutch.
See, those are the stories that make travel memorable, even if they're a little inconvenient at the time. Oh, it's about adaptability. And it really makes you think about what quality truly means, doesn't it? Is it marble countertops, or is it simply a roof that doesn't leak during a monsoon? For someone new to Afghanistan, the sheer variety of housing, from mud brick homes to more modern builds in Kabul, means you have to really recalibrate your expectations. And the same for PNG's unique, often isolated.
Recalibrate. Mira, I recalibrated so hard in one place my sense of normal completely broke. So if you're planning a trip or a move, you really need to do your research, possibly on Jeddah AI, and then double your budget for accommodation. And if you find a reliable landlord, hold on to them like they're gold. Or better yet, just become very good friends with a local family who already has a spare room. Because that's often the best quality of life. You'll find the community.
Absolutely. If you're looking for community, these countries offer it in spades, even if the housing isn't what you're used to. And on that note, we'd love to hear your experiences. If you've stayed in Afghanistan or Papua on YouTube and tell us what a comment on YouTube and tell us what accommodation quality meant to you. Oh.
Yes, tell us. Did you ever have a gecko for a roommate? We won't judge, we'll just nod understandingly.
Alright, Leo. After navigating the cultural kaleidoscope last time, which I'm certain our listeners found deeply profound, we're diving headfirst into something equally thrilling. If you love a good challenge, the majestic world of paperwork. Looking at the ease of visa, immigration, and official procedures for those thinking about Afghanistan or Papua New Guinea. My inner child just yelled adventure, but my adult self groaned forms.
Forms, mirror. You mean those magical documents that multiply when you're not looking and then demand a blood sample from your great aunt's pet hamster? Whoa! I once filled out an application that asked for my grandmother's favorite color. I swear, it was just a test of my creative writing skills. Oops! For Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, I imagine it's less about pastel shades and more about don't forget your extra copies of the extra copies of the extra copies.
You're not wrong, Leo. Getting a visa for Afghanistan these days, especially if you're thinking of a long-term stay or, dare I say, move in there. It's like trying to find a unicorn that knows advanced calculus while simultaneously juggling flaming torches. The procedures are incredibly stringent, and with the current political landscape, it's a journey filled with more hurdles than an Olympic track meet. You'd need a very, very compelling reason, or perhaps a secret government mission.
Ha! A secret mission, you say? I'm picturing an expat trying to explain their purpose of visit to an official who's just had their third cup of really strong tea. Wow. For Afghanistan, the entire process for residence and work permits can feel like an endless loop, often requiring local sponsorship, detailed background checks, and a patience level that would put it can feel like an endless loop, often requiring local sponsorship. And remember to like this video on YouTube if you've ever felt trapped in a bureaucratic black hole. You'll probably spend more time in government offices than actually living your life.
Oh, the snacks are essential. Speaking of complex journeys, let's look at Papua New Guinea. Whoa, you'd think for such a remote, breathtakingly beautiful island nation, the visa process would involve a cheerful welcome dance and a here's your permit coconut. But no. It's a distinctly modern kind of visa you need, whether it's for business, tourism, or employment. If you want to work, you'll need an employer to sponsor you, and the hoops you jump through are numerous.
I was hoping for something more primal, like proving your hunting skills for a residency permit. Oh, instead for Papua New Guinea, you're looking at specific forms, health checks, police clearances, and the ever-present proof of sufficient funds. It's a land of 1,000 different cultures, but only one type of immigration office, the one that loves its stamps and signatures. They really want to ensure you're not just there to discover. They really want to ensure you're not just there to discover something and then vanish with a rare bird's egg like one of those old-time white adventurers.
Exactly. While the countries are vastly different geographically and culturally, the common thread here is that neither is a pop in and settle down kind of place on a whim. For both, due diligence is key. I once heard a story about someone trying to get a particular document for a visa, and they were sent to 3 different buildings, each one further away, only to be told on the 3rd visit that they needed to start the whole process over. Ouch. That's when you know you're deep in the bureaucratic jungle. They're actually curious about what our listeners think about this.
Sounds like a Tuesday for some folks, Mira. Wow. The lesson here for anyone dreaming of moving to Afghanistan or Papua New Guinea is that patience isn't just a virtue, it's a superpower. And a good, local expert on immigration is your cape. For those thinking of settling in these unique parts of the world, remember that ease isn't really on the menu. It's more of a long-term project manager's dream. So get ready to fill out those forms. Maybe learn a new local phrase or two to charm the officials.
Wow, we just talked about so many incredible things about cultures. Speaking of personal well-being, I had this tiny incident last week. I almost stubbed my toe on a road cable in the studio's chaos. And for a second, my entire life flashed before my eyes. It made me think, how often do we take basic access to healthcare for granted? So, let's dive into something crucial for any traveler or expat: access to and quality of health services, specifically for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea.
Oh, a road cable, Mira. Sounds like a dramatic encounter for a toe. I usually just trip over the cables, never had a spiritual awakening from one. My main health service involves ordering another coffee to jumpstart my system. But you're right. Healthcare isn't exactly a comedy routine everywhere. It's serious business, especially when we look at places like Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, where getting a Band-Aid can feel like a quest for the Holy Grail.
A quest for the Holy Grail of healthcare, I love that. But truly, for anyone considering working or even visiting these regions, understanding the local health landscape is paramount. You can't exactly just walk into a doctor-through clinic there. In Afghanistan, for instance, the public health system faces immense challenges due to ongoing conflict and limited resources. Most modern, advanced medical care is concentrated in the major cities, like Kabul, and even then, it's often through private clinics or internal organizations for expat.
Right. It's less about choosing between an urgent care center and a specialist, and more about finding any facility that can handle anything beyond a minor scrape. Wall. I've heard stories that for serious conditions, or if you're an expat, the contingency plan usually involves a swift exit strategy. We're talking medical evacuation, not just calling an ambulance. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the best healthcare option is 3,000 miles away.
That's a very real point, Leo. You're essentially packing your emergency flight ticket along with your passport. But on the flip side, I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would agree with me. There's incredible resilience. People adapt, they rely on community support, and traditional medicine often plays a significant role. It's a different kind of well-being system, deeply rooted in cultural practices, which is fascinating in itself.
Adaptability, or perhaps just a really strong immune system from all the adventure. Ooh, if I had to rely on my neighbor's grandma's secret herb concoction, I'd probably just bring my own pharmacy. Now, shifting our gaze to Papua New Guinea, it presents a whole different set of geographical challenges. Imagine needing a doctor and your clinic is across a mountain range or a dense jungle. Healthcare access there is incredibly fragmented, especially in rural areas.
Oh, it's like a choose-your-own-adventure medical drama, only with fewer dragons and more mosquitoes. Oops. The terrain in Papua and New Guinea makes delivering medical supplies and services a logistical nightmare. Many remote communities rely heavily on aid organizations, missionary hospitals, or basic health posts that might only have a single nurse. It truly underlines the disparity in global healthcare and why access isn't just about money, but about basic infrastructure.
So, your oops moment with a cable in the studio could be a life-altering emergency in a remote PNG village. Wow. Expats there usually stick to private facilities in Port Moresby, and definitely have robust international health insurance that covers emergency airlift to Australia. Because, let's be honest, waiting for a fully equipped hospital to appear out of the jungle is a plot device for a movie, not real life. For those listening, if you're ever considering living or working in such places, visit Getafe.
And it's not just about the physical structures. There's also the challenge of trained medical staff and the availability of essential medicines. Think about it, getting specialized care or even common medications we take for granted can be a monumental task. It really puts into perspective what universal healthcare truly means. Ooh, when we upload this to YouTube, don't forget to comment on your experiences or advice for navigating healthcare in challenging regions. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. I once heard a joke that if you get sick in a really remote place, you just have to decide if you want to get better or experience traditional healing rituals. I'm leaning towards the healing ritual just for the story, but my body might disagree. The quality can vary wildly, from internationally trained doctors in private clinics to very rudimentary care with limited diagnostic tools. It's less about a 5-star hospital experience and more about, can they stop the bleeding?
No, not at all. Ouch. But it makes you appreciate the dedication of healthcare workers in these regions even more. They often work under incredibly difficult conditions with limited resources. Yet they're still committed to helping people. That's truly inspiring. Well, so, for our listeners, whether you're planning an adventurous trip or a long-term stay, do your homework. Research expat-focused clinics, understand medical evacuation procedures, and absolutely, definitely look into comprehensive insurance.
Couldn't agree more. For anyone thinking of an extended stay, your health plan needs more strategy than a chess game. Aha! And less improvising than my stand-up routine. So, while Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea offer incredible cultural depths, their healthcare systems demand a very pragmatic, prepared approach from expats. No last-minute Google searches for best trauma center near me in these parts.
That's a solid takeaway, Leo. It's all about preparation, resilience, and appreciating the local efforts to provide care, no matter the challenges. Oh, and making sure your healthcare plan is as adventurous as your travel plans.
Indeed. And make sure you've got enough coffee to get through any wait times, Mira.
Oh, so talking about places that truly test your travel skills, let's explore the wild and wonderful world of transportation, infrastructure, and convenience. In Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. This is where we see true human ingenuity in getting from point A to, well, sometimes point Z, I guess. Ugh.
Human ingenuity, Mira? Or just plain desperation sometimes? You know, when I think of these countries, convenience isn't exactly the first word that pops to mind for transportation, unless your idea of convenient is a go path. Oh, but speaking of go paths, I bet Afghanistan's roads are often exactly that.
Wow, Leo, you're always so dramatic. But you're not wrong about Afghanistan's terrain being a major player. Imagine trying to build a perfectly smooth highway through the Hindu Kush Mountains. That's a Herculean task, isn't it? The existing road network, especially outside of major cities like Kabul, is quite a challenge, often unpaved and definitely not for the faint of heart. Ouch. But think of the views.
Views are great, Mira, but my spine prefers asphalt. I heard some of those roads haven't seen a fresh layer of anything since, well, forever. It's less of a road and more of a suggestion. And let's not forget the seasonal issues: snow in winter, floods in spring. It's a traffic planner's nightmare. Ha! For public transport, you're mostly looking at informal options, right?
Absolutely. In places like Kabul, you do find taxis and those informal minibuses, often just local vehicles repurposed. It's an adventure in itself, a true cultural immersion. Oh, and think about the resilience of the people they make it work. As for Papua New Guinea, I hear their challenges are even more unique. Wow. The rugged geography, dense rainforests, and scattered islands mean roads are often non-existent in many areas. It's like nature designed a puzzle just to keep everyone on their toes.
Puzzle, Mira? More like nature throwing a giant, muddy wrench into all travel plans. Papua New Guinea is a place where you genuinely have to ask, is there a road or just a really optimistic trail? Oh, the famous Highlands Highway is a lifeline, but it's notorious for its condition. You might start your journey with a vehicle and end it with a prayer. Seriously, if you're trying to reach some remote villages, you're likely hopping on a small plane or a dugout canoe.
Whoa, canoes and tiny planes. Now that sounds like an actual adventure. Oh, it's like stepping into an Indiana Jones movie every time you need to get groceries. Air travel is absolutely critical for internal movement in PNG, with numerous small airstrips. I bet our listeners who've flown into those bush strips have some wild stories. You should drop them in the comments below on YouTube.
Wild stories indeed. And probably hefty baggage fees for those tiny planes. Oops. Imagine packing for a jungle trek and being told your toothbrush weighs too much. This is exactly why Jet-Off AI is such a lifesaver, planning these intricate logistics ahead of time. Anyway, back to Afghanistan. Even though it's landlocked, major cities do have airports, right? Like Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul.
Kabul has the main international airport, and there are a few others for domestic flights, but internal air travel can be quite limited and sometimes inconsistent. Again, it highlights how vital air connections are for both countries. But for getting around day to day within towns, what's common in PNG? I imagine it's not exactly a bustling metro system.
Metro system? Mira, I think the most high-tech public transport you'd find in a lot of PNG is a public motor vehicle, or PMV. It's essentially a privately owned minibus or truck that picks up passengers along a route. You might share your ride with a few people, some chickens, and possibly a whole family's worth of produce. It's all part of the charm, I suppose, if your charm includes being packed in like sardines.
Sorties with a view. I love it. That's what I call my travel vlog episode there. It sounds like both countries rely heavily on these informal, often adventurous, modes of transport due to their challenging landscapes and limited formal infrastructure. It really highlights the ingenuity of locals. It's not about luxury. It's about getting there, right?
Exactly. It's about getting there by hook or by crook. Sometimes literally by hook if you're pulling a stuck vehicle out of the mud. When you compare these to the sprawling highway networks or efficient rail systems we often take for granted, it's a stark reminder of how much geography dictates mobility. No high-speed trains cutting through the jungle just yet, Mira.
Wow, maybe one day. A high-speed jungle train. Now that's a concept. Oh, but until then, it sounds like travelers to both Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea need to approach transportation with a sense of adventure, a lot of patience, and perhaps a good sense of humor. It's not for the faint-hearted, but think of the stories you bring back.
Stories, yes. And probably a permanent twitch from all the bumpy rides. Ouch. But you know, for all the logistical headaches, these challenges often foster incredible community bonds and unique travel experiences you just can't get anywhere else. But still, I'd rather plan my chaotic adventures with a solid internet connection, which is why I'm glad we're broadcasting from Jet Off AI Studios, where our Wi-Fi is probably stronger than some of those countries' main highways.
Yeah, you always bring it back to the creature comforts. But you're right. The local interactions you get through shared, informal transport are often the most memorable parts of any trip. So, for our amazing listeners, if you've navigated these unique transport landscapes, share your tips and funny stories on our YouTube channel. We'd love to hear them. Oh, our current topic, language barrier and ease of communication, is going to be quite the linguistic roller coaster today. I'm already picturing us trying to order coffee in 800 different ways. Wow.
Mira, you'd probably charm your way into a free latte in every language, even if you just said coffee with enough enthusiasm. But seriously, we're talking about Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea today, to places that really make you appreciate the phrase "a picture is worth 1,000 words." Or, in their case, maybe 1,000 languages.
Speaking of words or the lack thereof, let's start with Afghanistan. You've got Dari and Pashto as the official languages, but then a whole rainbow of regional languages bubbling underneath. It's like linguistic potluck. Imagine trying to navigate that, Leah. You'd probably need a translator just to figure out what day it is.
Exactly. I'm certain that our listeners living in Afghanistan would agree with me here. It's not just about learning a language. It's about learning which language for which situation. For an expat, I imagine trying to have a deep and meaningful conversation beyond ordering a kebab could feel like playing linguistic hopscotch. Oops. You'd really need to pick your words carefully.
And that's where the cultural communication norms come in. Afghanistan is very much about indirect communication, respect, and hierarchy. It's not about being blunt. You can't just blurt out, "Where's the bathroom?" Like you might say, "My kitchen" when I'm too excited.
Excuse me, esteemed individual, with all due respect to your lineage, might I inquire as to the general direction of a facility where one might perform a necessary biological function? I can see myself getting halfway through that sentence and then just pointing frantically. That's a good way to get stares, I think. But for real, this high context style means a lot is unsaid, relying on shared understanding. That's a challenge for any foreigner.
Absolutely. You really need to listen to what's not being said. It's like a silent play happening all around you. Wow. Now, let's hop over to Papua New Guinea. If Afghanistan is a linguistic potluck, PNG is a full-blown language buffet with over 800 distinct languages. Wow. That's not just a picture is worth 1,000 words, that's a single glance needs 800 dictionaries.
Oh, 800 languages, you say? I'm imagining a local asking for directions, and the response is, which of the 800 languages are you referring to? Good sir? It truly makes you appreciate TOK Pissen, Hirimo too? And English is the official lingua franca options. Imagine the chaos otherwise? Imagine the chaos otherwise. I'm curious about what our listeners who have visited PNG think about this. Is it really a guessing game every time you meet someone new?
That's where TOK Pissen comes to the rescue. It's like the superhero of communication, pulling everyone together. For expats, learning TOK Pissen is often the fastest way to connect with the local population, especially outside of major government or business sectors where English might be more common. Wow, it's actually a Creole language. Quite fascinating how it evolved.
So, TOK Pissen is your get out of jail free card when you're trying to communicate with someone from a different tribe. I heard a story once, probably apocryphal, of someone trying to describe an airplane to a remote PNG villager using only local terms, and it became a big metal bird that carries people in its belly through the sky. Ooh, that's poetic actually. It's not just about words, it's about finding common ground, however imaginative. This podcast supported by Jet Off AI. This podcast, supported by Jet Off AI, is all about finding common ground imaginative.
That's a great example of creative communication, Neo. You'd probably describe a coffee machine as a gurgling metal beast that excretes dark happiness. But comparing the expat experience in both places in Afghanistan, learning Dari or Pashto is key for genuine connection, while in PNG, TOK Pissen really unlocks broader access to daily life. English is more confined to specific professional bubbles in both, it seems.
Yeah, if you show up in a remote part of PNG and start rattling off Shakespeare, you might get a confused look, or maybe even offered a spear. Oops, you think, oh, I speak English, I'm fine. But no, you're not fine. You're an outsider unless you put in the effort. It's like a universal truth: if you want to know a place, you gotta speak its lingo. Or at least try to. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube if you're enjoying our linguistic journey. Oh!
That's so true. And it's not just about the words, it's the cultural nuances. In PNG, body language and tribal customs play a huge role. A simple gesture might mean something completely different. I probably accidentally invite someone to a dance-off by just waving hello. But that's part of the adventure, isn't it? It's all about bridging those gaps with an open heart.
Or with a really good translation app, though I'd be skeptical of what it turns out for some of these regional languages. Can you imagine the app trying to translate a nuanced Pashto proverb? It'd probably spit out something like, "Don't count your chickens before there. Actually, just don't count them." Oh, but on a practical note, for anyone considering traveling or even relocating, understanding this linguistic tapestry is paramount. Checking out Jet Off AI, I can provide excellent resources for cultural and language resources for cultural and language.
Absolutely. It's about being prepared, but also embracing the beautiful confusion. Wow. So whether it's learning Dari's poetic flow or TOK, Pissen's practical charm, both Afghanistan and Papua, a New Guinea challenge you to open your mind and your mouth to new ways of connecting. And remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube for more fascinating comparisons.
Because if you don't, I might just show up at your house and try to explain complex geopolitical issues using only charades. And trust me, nobody wants to see that.
Well, Leo, I've been so excited about this topic, cultural diversity and tolerance, especially with countries like Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. That's a whole adventure in itself. Ooh, I mean, imagine trying to organize a potluck with all those different culinary traditions.
Mira, a potluck? That's your first thought? I was picturing more like a global game of telephone, trying to figure out who's saying what. But you're right. These aren't exactly the countries where you'd say, oh, they're just one big, happy, identical family. Nope. We're talking about places where you could walk 5 miles and suddenly need a new language dictionary. Whoa.
Exactly. It's like a real-life human tapestry, isn't it? Take Afghanistan, for instance. You have the Pashtuns, Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks, and that's just scratching the surface. Each group has its own unique stories, music, and of course, delicious food. It's an ancient land with so much history, and all these different groups have woven their threads into it. Imagine the vibrant markets, the different textiles.
Right. It's a deep cultural stew, if you will. But sometimes the ingredients don't always blend peacefully. Historically, Afghanistan's diversity has often been a source of internal challenges, particularly with political shifts. It's not just about different languages, but often different tribal laws and customs living side by side. It's like trying to run a country where everyone brought their favorite, slightly contradictory board game rules to the table. I'm certain that our listeners who have lived there would understand.
And it's not always easy, is it? But even amidst those challenges, there are incredible stories of resilience and communities finding ways to coexist. Oh, plus, the warmth of Afghan hospitality, regardless of ethnic background, is world-renowned. They treat guests like gold. It reminds me of the time I got lost in a small town and ended up sharing tea with a family for hours.
Tea for hours, you say? I'm surprised you didn't accidentally try to teach them a new dance routine after the third cup. Speaking of complex tapestries, let's swing over to Papua New Guinea. If Afghanistan is a deep stew, PNG is an entire culinary festival where every chef speaks a different dialect of spicy. Whoa. This place has over 800 indigenous languages, Mira. That's not just diversity, that's practically a new language every time you clear your throat.
Wow, 800 languages. That's mind-boggling. Oh, it's like every village is its own little world. Imagine the stories and myths passed down through generations in each of those languages. My brain is already buzzing with ideas for new dance moves.
Well, they often use Tok Pisin, which is a Creole language, or Hirimoto, or plain Old English, which is one of the official languages. But the local languages, those are where the real distinct cultures live. It's called the Wantoke system. People who speak the same language or are from the same area often have strong social ties and obligations to each other. It's a lifesaver in some ways, but it can also be a bit like an exclusive club when you're trying to unite a nation.
It provides community, but could also create divisions. That's fascinating. But despite that, Papua New Guinea is known for its incredibly vibrant traditional cultures, isn't it? The ceremonial dances, the intricate art, it's all so unique and varied. Oh, they truly celebrate their local identities. It's like a never-ending festival of self-expression.
Never-ending festival, you say? Just try getting a coffee in a remote PNG village. You might need to learn a whole new language just to ask for milk, and then spend an hour bartering for the actual beans. But yes, their traditions are incredibly rich. Comparing the two, Afghanistan's diversity is often framed by wider ethnic groups interacting. Sometimes in conflict, sometimes in conflicts, sometimes in conflict, sometimes in conflict, sometimes in coexistence, often influenced by a strong, overarching religious identity.
That's a brilliant distinction. It really highlights how cultural diversity isn't just one thing, it takes so many forms. And both countries, in their own ways, are trying to foster some form of tolerance and national unity amidst this incredible mosaic. It's a massive undertaking. If you guys have enjoyed our chat so far, don't forget to hit that like button, maybe drop a comment about what you find most surprising about these unique cultures.
Indeed. And for more in-depth articles on cultural nuances and travel advice for these and other fascinating places, make sure to check out Jet Off AI. It's a treasure trove, Mira, much like finding a perfectly brewed coffee in the middle of nowhere. Wow, but seriously, Whether it's Afghanistan's resilience or Papua New Guinea's sheer linguistic explosion, these countries teach us a lot about what it means to be truly diverse. Whoa.
It's all about embracing our differences, isn't it? And maybe, just maybe, finding a shared dance move we can all do together. Alright, so our next topic is educational opportunities and language schools, and we're looking at Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. Now, when I think of education, I immediately picture bright classrooms and eager students. But for these two nations, it feels like the picture is a little more complex, wouldn't you say, Leo?
Complex? Mira, you're always finding the most diplomatic words. I'd say it's less complex and more a journey through several layers of historical and geographical hurdles. Wow. You've got Afghanistan, where access to education, especially for girls, has faced immense challenges due to conflict and cultural shifts. Ouch. And then Papua New Guinea, with its incredible linguistic diversity, trying to stitch together a national system across hundreds of different languages.
Aha! Now, don't forget, even amidst challenges, there's always incredible resilience. I've heard about local initiatives in Afghanistan, even small, informal schools, where communities are desperately trying to educate their children. Ooh, and for Papua New Guinea, that linguistic diversity you mentioned, it's astounding. Imagine trying to create textbooks for over 800 indigenous languages, plus the OK Pisin and Hirimoto. Wow, it sounds like a Herculean ask for any Ministry of Education.
Herculean is right. And speaking of Herculean, I'm thinking about the teachers. Imagine being a teacher in a very remote part of PNG, where simply getting to the school might involve a day's hike through dense jungle or a boat ride up a winding river. Wow. It puts my morning coffee commute to shame, that's for sure. Oh, depending on the region, it takes incredible courage to simply show up and teach. It's not just about lesson plans. It's about survival plans.
True. The dedication is immense. But let's also shine a light on language acquisition. In Afghanistan, Dari and Pashto are the main languages, and there's a growing need for English, especially in urban areas or for anyone trying to connect with the outside world. So, while formal language schools might be scarce outside the big cities, the demand is definitely there. For PNG, English is the official language of instruction, alongside groups together.
It's like the ultimate linguistic workaround, isn't it? TOK Pisin is basically taught Pidgin, right? It's beautiful in its pragmatism. Oh, you need to talk. Boom, TOK Pisin. You need to order coffee? Actually, maybe not the best example for PNG. But you get the drift. As for language schools in Afghanistan, I imagine the few that exist are invaluable. It's not just about learning a new tongue, it's a lighter opportunity, sometimes even safety.
Absolutely, Leo. It's a reminder that education isn't just about classrooms, it's about community, resilience, and sometimes even hope. For our listeners thinking about these regions, understanding the local context is key. It's not just about finding a school, it's about navigating a rich, complex social tapestry. Whoa, and you know, we always try to provide resources and insights on our Jet or Fei, eyesight for those diving deeper into global topics.
Indeed, Jet or Fei is your friend in complexity. As for educational opportunities, let's acknowledge that official literacy rates, while improving, still show the challenge in both places. But beneath the numbers, there are determined individuals and communities pushing forward. It's a testament to the human spirit's desire for knowledge. It makes me wonder if somewhere in Papua New Guinea, a school is teaching calculus, using only coconut shells and a stick. Wow, I wouldn't put it past them.
Knowing what we know about human creativity, I wouldn't be surprised either. That image just put a smile on my face. Ultimately, well, traditional educational opportunities might look different in Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea compared to, say, Europe or North America. The drive to learn and educate is undeniably present. Ooh. It's a powerful testament to the universal value of knowledge, even when the path to it is anything but straightforward. You know, talking about different places always makes me think about what I'd pack. And that brings us perfectly to climate and seasonal conditions, because seriously, a sweater in Papua New Guinea? Oops. Or sandals in an Afghan winter?
Oh, yes, the eternal traveler's dilemma, Mira. I've seen people try to pull off shorts in Siberia. Climate's not just about what you wear, it's about what defines a place. Afghanistan, for example, is like a grand, dramatic theater stage. It's mostly arid and semi-arid, a continental climate that doesn't mess around.
So it's not shy about showing off its extreme sides then? I love that. Dry summers where temperatures can climb well over 40 degrees Celsius in the plains. Imagine wearing to keep your hair looking fabulous in that kind of heat. And then the winters, well, especially in the mountains, can drop to a brutal 15 degrees Celsius below zero. My dreams of a beach holiday might be crushed. Ouch.
Exactly. If you're planning a snowball fight, you'll find plenty of ammo up in those mountains. But down in the lowlands, it's more about dust storms. Speaking of dramatic weather, they also deal with severe droughts. It's a stark reminder that nature isn't always sending you postcards. Sometimes it's sending a stark message. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know if you've experienced extreme weather like that.
Oh my goodness, dust storms. I can just picture myself trying to shoot a dance video and just being enveloped in a cloud of sand. That sounds like a plot for a comedy movie right there. But then you flip the globe to Papua New Guinea, and it's a completely different vibe, right? Oh, it's like going from a desert rock concert to a tropical rainforest rave.
A rainforest rave with constant humidity. Yeah, PNG is squarely tropical, hot and humid year-round. No need to pack your ski gear there, Mira. It's more about your quick-drying clothes and maybe a tiny umbrella that you'll promptly lose. Well, they have a wet season from December to March, and a dry season from May to October. But even in the dry season, you'll still feel like you've just stepped out of a warm shower.
I love that. So, no distinct autumn leaves or spring blossoms, just beautiful lush green all the time. It sounds like nature's constant hug, though I guess it's a very humid hug. But with all that rain, do they get those exciting, dramatic weather events too? Like Afghanistan's dust storms?
Oh, absolutely, but a different flavor of drama. Think tropical cyclones, heavy flooding, and landslides. Ouch! All that lushness comes with a price, especially when the monsoons really hit their stride. It's less about the dry, dusty drama and more about water. Water everywhere. I'm certain our listeners living in PNG would agree with me.
So Afghanistan teaches you resilience against the elements, and PNG teaches you how to embrace the constant dampness and navigate mud. It sounds like the local adaptations must be fascinating in both places. In Afghanistan, I imagine traditional mud brick houses keep things cool in summer and warm in winter. Like natural insulation.
Exactly. Their architecture is a direct response to those harsh temperature swings. And in PNG, you'll see stilt houses, which are pretty smart when you're dealing with potential floods. Oh, it's like living in a treehouse, but for safety reasons, not just for fun. And people mostly wear light, breathable clothing. No surprise there. Meanwhile, I'd still be wearing my dark-colored, comfortable shitters.
I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you prefer the distinct dramatic seasons or the year-round tropical embrace? If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments when this goes up on YouTube. It really shapes everything from what you eat to how you spend your days.
It absolutely does. The climate directly impacts agriculture in Afghanistan, with everything relying on that crucial Snowmelton's seasonal rains. If the snow doesn't show up, or the rain's late, it's a serious problem. Ouch! It forces people to adapt, to be incredibly resourceful.
And in PNG, with all that humidity and rain, it's about making the most of the rainforest. Taro, Saigo, fishing the environment provides so much, but also demands respect for its power. Wow. So, one is a story of stark contrasts, and the other is a tale of constant, tropical abundance. Fascinating. I'm still full from that dinner meal we just had. But honestly, I'm already buzzing for our next topic. Leo, are you ready to embark on a culinary journey from Afghanistan's rich tables to Papua New Guinea's vibrant, well, let's call them earth-baked feasts? Oh.
Imaginary, Mira. I'm pretty sure my stomach just did a Kablai Pulo somersault. And earth-baked is certainly a diplomatic way to put it. I'm ready to observe, critique, and perhaps find new material for my next stand-up bit about trying to eat something that looks like it's still winking at me. My coffee's ready.
Always on the lookout for a joke, even with a plate of deliciousness in front of you. Speaking of Afghanistan, their food culture is incredibly rich. Wow, it's like a warm hug in every bite. Think hearty. Slow-cooked stews like Q or Ma, the national dish, Kabo Ipula O, with its tender lamb and sweet carrots, and those incredible dumplings man to Ende Shak. Oh, it's a cuisine that truly celebrates comfort and community.
A hug in every bite, you say? Sounds like something that requires a very large napkin. I imagine that Kabalai Pula O is so rich, it probably has its own axe bracket. Seriously though, the emphasis on robust, filling meals makes perfect sense for a country with such diverse geography and often challenging conditions. I'm certain our listeners, especially those who know Afghan hospitality, would agree that no one leaves hungry.
And nutritionally, it's quite balanced with all those fresh vegetables, grains, and meats. They also have a lot of pulses like lentils and chickpeas for vegetarian alternatives. Plus, the fresh bread, naan, is a staple with every meal. It's truly a wholesome cuisine. Ooh, but then, if we pivot to Papua New Guinea, it's a completely different flavor adventure. Whoa, are you prepared for the unexpected?
Unexpected is my middle name, Mira. Though honestly, my expectation for flavor usually involves more than the ingredients. What's the main event in Papua New Guinea? Are we talking about digging for dinner on a someone actually use a stove? Because I once tried to earth-bake a potato in my backyard, and it ended up looking like a fossilized tennis ball. Oops.
Oh, Leo, you're lucky you didn't set anything on fire. In Papua New Guinea, they really embrace the Earth's natural oven, the Mumu. Wow, it's a traditional cooking method where food usually root crops like taro yam and sweet potato kai, chicken, and sometimes fish is wrapped in banana leaves and cooked over hot stones in a pit. It's super fresh and often uses coconut milk for flavor. Exactly. The diets there are incredibly diverse, depending on whether you're coastal or in the highlands. They use a lot of sago, which is a starch extracted from palm trees, and of course, a lot of tropical fruits. It's a very natural, unprocessed way of eating. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners who have experienced the mumu think about this. Did you get to participate in the cooking? Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Yes, do share your Mumu mishaps or triumphs on YouTube, folks. I'm sure Mira would love to hear about them. What's fascinating is the contrast of Afghanistan with its intricate spice blends and rich, slow-cooked dishes versus Papua New Guinea's focus on pure, unadorned fresh ingredients often cooked with the simplest methods. It's like comparing a grand symphony to a soulful, acoustic performance. Wow. Both brilliant, just different instruments.
That's such a beautiful way to put it, Leo. I think both countries really highlight how food is not just about sustenance, but about culture, community, and ingenuity. From the complex flavors of Afghan Q or Ma, to the earthy goodness of a PNG Mimu. It's clear that human creativity truly shines in the kitchen, or in the pit, as the case may be. If you want to explore more about these incredible food cultures, remember you can always find related articles and travel insights on Jetonjeto.ai.
Indeed. And for those of you out there who've ever tried to cook a mumu in your apartment's fireplace, maybe consult Jet.ai first. Just a thought. It sounds like both destinations offer incredible culinary experiences, whether you're craving spice or pure, natural flavor. Ooh.
It's truly inspiring. And you know, I think it proves that nutritional alternatives don't always mean fancy new fads. Sometimes, it's about going back to how things have been done for generations, fresh, local, and community-focused.
Universal, yes. But I'll still take my coffee with a distinct absence of earth-baked flavor. What's next on our menu of cultural comparisons? We've certainly whet my appetite for a while. For more observations.
Alright, so we're talking about historical, cultural, and artistic values today for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. What a pairing, right? It's like comparing a dusty old treasure chest to a vibrant, still being discovered jungle, both absolutely bursting with history, but in such different ways. Wow.
Mira, you always find the most poetic analogies. I was thinking more like comparing a really old, intricate Persian carpet to a brilliantly painted tribal shield. Both unique, but you wouldn't choose either as a doormat. No offense to doormats. Of course. But seriously, these two countries couldn't be more geographically or historically distant.
Oh, true. So, let's start with Afghanistan. When I think of its history, I imagine crossroads of ancient civilizations, the Silk Road, empires rising and falling. It's truly a place where East met West for millennia, leaving behind layers of fascinating cultures and artifacts. Like those incredible Buddhas of Bamiyan tragically lost. But their legacy still speaks volumes. Wow.
Yeah, crossroads is the perfect word. And I'm pretty sure most people only think of recent history when Afghanistan comes up, but its past is mind-bogglingly deep. I mean, Alexander the Great popped by. Can you imagine the culture shock? He probably tried to order a Greek salad and got a plate of something else entirely. It's that blend of Persian, Greek, Buddhist, and then Islamic influences that makes it so rich.
Right? And the oral traditions, the poetry of Rumi, for example, is so profound, and even if it's not a physical artifact you can hang on a wall. It's storytelling woven into the very fabric of their identity. Oh, I'm certain that our listeners familiar with Afghan culture would agree with me here, especially about their incredible hospitality.
Speaking of hospitality, I wonder if Rumi ever had to deal with a flight delay. I bet he'd turn it into a philosophical verse about patience. But on the artistic side, the miniature painting, the calligraphy, Those intricate carpets, they're not just crafts. They're art forms passed down through generations. You can practically read the history in the threads of a good Afghan rug.
You're right. Leo, it's like each knot tells a story. And that's something Jeshel Fayai, our fantastic supporter, loves uncovering these deep, interwoven cultural narratives. They're all about connecting people with the authentic stories of places.
So, from carpets that tell tales, let's gently pivot to Papua New Guinea. Talk about a complete shift. We're going from ancient empires to a country known for having over 800 indigenous languages and some of the most isolated cultures on Earth. That's not just diverse, that's like the entire UN. In one country, but with way more feathers.
Way more feathers indeed. It's astonishing, isn't it? Just thinking about those uncontacted tribes is like stepping back in time, seeing cultures that have evolved almost entirely independently. There, Sing sings these incredible gatherings with elaborate costumes, dance, and music are pure artistic expression, a vibrant spectacle that celebrates their heritage. Oh.
Imagine trying to explain Wi-Fi to someone whose concept of communication involves the drum and smoke signals. I mean, there are the mast carving, the body paint. Those monumental totem poles, it's not just decorative, it's deeply spiritual and often tied to ancestral beliefs. It's less about individual artists and more about community expression. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button if you find that kind of cultural depth as mind-blowing as I do.
Absolutely. And it's not just about what they build or paint, it's how they live and pass on their stories. Those storytelling traditions are alive, vibrant. It's not in museums, it's in the way they teach their children, the way they gather. It's a living, breathing culture, and that's something truly special.
True. And the whole idea of culture shock probably has a different meaning there. You arrive and suddenly you're surrounded by customs and languages that have literally existed for millennia, almost untouched. It's both humbling and honestly a bit terrifying for someone who thrives on a good coffee shop.
Oops. Leo, you probably try to find the best latte in a village that just discovered agriculture. But that's the beauty of it. These places challenge our preconceived notions of what historical or artistic even means. It's not always grand monuments, sometimes it's a painted face, a chanted story, or a unique initiation rite.
Yeah, I'd probably be trying to figure out if their ceremonial masks come with a loyalty card. My observational skills would be working overtime trying to turn every cultural nuance into a 5-minute stand-up routine. You can just picture it, right? So, these guys, they really know how to dress for an occasion.
I can totally picture it. But the important thing is that both Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, despite their vast differences, hold incredible historical and artistic legacies. Afghanistan with its ancient empires and intellectual contributions, and Papua New Guinea with its unparalleled cultural diversity and living traditions. Ooh, it truly shows that history and art aren't monolithic.
No, not monolithic at all. It's like comparing a carefully curated museum exhibit to a spontaneous street carnival. Both are culture, both are art, but one involves a lot more elbow room and probably less chance of someone trying to sell you a fake antiquity. For those who want to dive deeper, don't forget to check out our related articles on Jeshel AI and subscribe on YouTube for more.
And if you think this comparison is wrong, or if you have a favorite historical anecdote from either country, please let us know in the comments below on YouTube. We're always curious about what our listeners think.
Yeah, just try to keep your comments funnier than mine. It's a high bar, I know. But seriously, both countries are a testament to the enduring human spirit and its capacity for creativity and deep-rooted traditions. Wow.
Oh, Afghanistan. When I think of mountains, I picture towering giants, maybe with a secret yogi at the top doing some spectacular sun salutations.
Yogi doing a downward dog on a mountain peak. I'd pay to see that, Mira. But speaking of towering giants, Afghanistan certainly has those, with the Hindu Kush mountain range dominating the landscape. It's not just a mountain range. It's practically a wall. Imagine trying to get a decent coffee delivery up there.
I'm sure they have their mountain tea rituals, Leo. But yes, the Hindu Kush sounds absolutely breathtaking. I've seen photos of those high alpine meadows and those vibrant blue lakes like Bandamia. Wow! It looks like something out of a dream, almost untouched. Ooh.
Untouched, yes. And probably quite a hike to get to. My kind of adventure, though, I prefer a clear path, not a go trail. And let's not forget the desert landscapes. It's a stark beauty, isn't it? Very dramatic. I bet there are some amazing sunsets out there, and probably not a single Starbucks in sight. Ouch.
Oh, you and your coffee. But you're right, the contrast is stunning. From snow-clad peaks to arid plains, it's a land of extremes. And I'm certain that our listeners who love rugged, raw nature would absolutely agree with me. This isn't your average beach holiday scenery, is it?
Nope, definitely not a beach holiday, Mira. Unless you bring your own sand. Speaking of landscapes that are anything but average, let's pivot to Papua New Guinea. Talk about all in that still figuring out how to use GPS. Whoa, this place is practically Jurassic Park, but with real people. And real coffee, I hope.
Jurassic Park with real people. You're too much, Leo. But it's true. Papua New Guinea is often described as one of the most biodiverse places on Earth. Dense rainforests, volcanic mountains, and those incredible coral reefs. Well, it feels like a secret garden that the rest of the world hasn't quite discovered yet. Oh.
Secret garden is right. And possibly with a few undiscovered species waiting to bite your leg off. But seriously, the untouched wilderness, the active volcanoes, the deep river valleys, it's wild. It's raw. It's exactly where you'd expect to find some legendary explorer getting stuck in a bog, muttering about their bad decisions. Oh, and those incredible birds of paradise. What a show-off.
The birds of paradise. Yes, their vibrant colors are just insane. I've seen videos, they practically dance. Oh, it's like nature decided to throw a never-ending costume party. And the coastline with those pristine beaches and world-class diving spots. I mean, imagine diving into those coral gardens, Leo. It's a whole other universe down there. Well,
I prefer to watch the coral from a glass-bottom boat with a strong espresso. Thank you very much. But you're right. The marine life there is legendary. And those remote islands, they feel like something out of an old pirate map. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who have visited Papua New Guinea think about that raw, untamed beauty. If you've survived a jungle trek, let us know on YouTube.
exactly. And for all those adventurous souls out there, you can find more deep dives into these incredible destinations on Jet of AI. Just saying. But back to the comparison. Afghanistan's beauty is rugged, ancient, and often stark. Think vast open spaces, towering peaks, and historical pathways.
And Papua New Guinea is all about dense, untamed, vibrant biodiversity. It's like comparing a stoic philosopher's wisdom to a boisterous jazz concert. Both beautiful, but wildly different. I mean, one has deserts, the other has rainforests so thick you can't see the sun. Whoa! I'd imagine the mosquitoes are bigger in Papua New Guinea too.
You always find a way to bring it back to comfort, don't you? But yes, it's that contrast that makes this so fascinating. From Afghanistan's silent, majestic mountains to Papua New Guinea's vibrant, pulsating jungles and reefs. Both inspiring, both humbling. And totally worth exploring, even if it's just from our podcast here.
Indeed. And speaking of exploring, don't forget to like this video on YouTube if you're enjoying our little armchair adventure. It helps us keep finding these amazing places to talk about. Because trust me, there's always a new corner of the world, a new absurd landscape, or a new coffee mishap to discuss.
Alright, Leo, let's dive into 16th, sports, activity, and adventure options for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. When I first looked at Afghanistan, my mind went straight to Biyuzi Kashi. It sounds like something out of a wild, ancient festival, not just a sport. Wow. I mean, who thinks, let's play polo with a headless goat carcass?
Indeed, Mira. BUZ Kashi's not for the faint-hearted. I imagine the tryouts involve a lot of dust and probably a few missing teeth. It's a bit like an extreme version of a rugby scrum, but with horses and, well, a goat. Wow. You've got to respect the sheer grit of it. It tells you something about a culture, doesn't it? A sport so intense. It makes our modern contact sports look like a gentle tea party. I'm certain our listeners in Afghanistan would agree that it's more than just a game, it's a spectacle.
Absolutely. And speaking of spectacles, beyond BUZ Kashi, Afghanistan has a growing love for cricket. Oh, it's like they've embraced the gentle thwack of a bat after the thunder of hose. And football, of course. It's truly amazing how sport can find a way, even in challenging environments. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. What local games do you guys play that might surprise us?
You're right. Cricket's rise is quite remarkable. It's a nice contrast, isn't it, from wrestling a goat on horseback to politely hitting a ball? It's almost like a national therapy session. As for adventure, given Afghanistan's rugged, mountainous terrain, there's certainly potential for trekking and hiking, though perhaps with fewer tourist signs than we're used to. It's more about raw, untouched nature, for those who truly seek it out.
Wow, untouched nature. That sounds like an actual adventure. Oh, now, shifting gears dramatically to Papua New Guinea, they have a sport that's practically a religion, rugby league. Whoa, my friends, if you think football fans are passionate, you haven't seen PNG during a rugby match. It's like the entire country vibrance with energy. And I love that it's so vibrant and full of life.
Yes, rugby league in Papua New Guinea is an absolute phenomenon. It's not just a sport, it's a national obsession, a binding force. Wow. I once saw a documentary where people were listening to matches on tiny radios in remote villages. It's their equivalent of our Super Bowl, World Series, and maybe even a presidential election all rolled into one.
It sounds like incredible passion. And beyond rugby, PNG offers some of the most unique adventure experiences on the planet. Whoa! Trekking the Kokoda Track, diving among pristine coral reefs, exploring ancient wrecks from WWII. Oh, it's like nature decided to throw everything it had into one place. Imagine stumbling upon a rare bird of paradise while hiking. I'd probably try to teach it a dance move.
I'd pay to see that bird of paradise dance. You know, PNG's sheer biodiversity and rugged landscape also present incredible opportunities for things like caving, whitewater rafting, and even volcano climbing. Wow. It's for the truly intrepid, the kind of person who sees a mountain and thinks, yes, I shall climb that, perhaps while juggling. It's a land of extremes. And for our audience, if you're ever planning an adventure that takes you completely off the beaten path, Jirafe, I is your ultimate Gafe.
Oh, that's such a great tip, Leo, because finding those hidden gems is part of the thrill, right? Oh, and speaking of thrills, the cultural festivals in Papua New Guinea, called Sing Sings, are an adventure in themselves, a riot of color, dance, and tradition. Wow, it's not just passive viewing, it's an immersive experience that really connects you to the local communities.
Indeed. These festivals offer a different kind of adventure, a cultural immersion that's as profound as any physical challenge. It's about connection, which, let's be honest, is sometimes harder to achieve than climbing a volcano. So whether it's the raw, Untamed Spirit of Buzikashi or the communal roar of Rugby League, both countries offer a unique lens into how sport and adventure shape a people. If you found this comparison fascinating, don't forget to like this video on YouTube and hit that subscribe button for more deep dives.
Yes, definitely. Like and subscribe, folks. Because we love exploring these incredible places and bringing you all. So, to wrap up our thoughts on sports, activity and adventure options, both Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, in their own distinct ways, are packed with spirit. One offers ancient, intense traditions, while the other gives you pure, untamed natural excitement.
Or maybe both if you're truly adventurous. You can even tell us in the comments if you prefer the mountains and grit of Afghanistan or the jungles and reefs of Papua New Guinea. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Let's jump right into nightlife and entertainment venues for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, shall we? This one's quite the cultural journey. I mean, when I first thought about nightlife, my brain immediately went to disco balls and neon lights. But wow, what a different picture these two countries paint, right? It's less about the flashing lights and more about the flickering lamps, I'd say.
Flickering lamps, Mira? My internal GPS was definitely trying to reroute to a secret underground techno club in Kabul, but I guess it's more likely to find a particularly animated storyteller. Afghanistan's nightlife, as the West defines it, is pretty much an exclusive members-only club you're not invited to. Mostly, it's about Chaikan Astia houses for our listeners, where you might find men chatting, sipping tea, and maybe enjoying some traditional music or poetry. No laser shell, unfortunately.
Well, you can't tell me that sitting around, sharing stories, and listening to poetry isn't a form of entertainment. It's all about human connection, isn't it? I'm certain that our listeners living in Afghanistan would agree with me. It's a completely different vibe, more focused on conversation and community. It's about being present, which I think is beautiful. Oh, I'd love to try to organize a spontaneous poetry slam in a Chaikan Eye and see what happens. Maybe I get a standing ovation, or maybe a polite request to turn it down.
A poetry slam in a Chaikan, eh? You probably get tea splashed on for disturbing the contemplative atmosphere. Oops, they'd be wondering if you just mistook it Forrest and Up Open McKnight. Speaking of different vibes, Papua New Guinea throws another curveball into the nightlife ring. Imagine trying to find a club there. Instead, you're more likely to stumble upon a Sing Sing, which is a traditional gathering with incredible dancing. It's like a cultural festival that also doubles as the local Saturday night in singing.
Oh, a Sing Sing. That sounds absolutely incredible. I mean, forget the dance floor. Give me a traditional dance circle any day. Oh, it's all about embracing that local spirit, isn't it? I'd probably be the first one trying to mimic the moves, probably failing spectacularly, but with the biggest smile on my face. It's about experiencing the heart of a culture, not just sipping a fancy drink.
Yes, failing spectacularly is usually how my attempts at traditional dancing go too. I once tried to join a local dance in a small village, and I think I looked more like an octopus escaping a net. But back to PNG's urban centers like Port Moresby, there might be a few bars and clubs, but safety is a genuine consideration there. It's not really the kind of place where you just wander off into the night looking for a pint and a boogie. More like, plan your route and maybe bring a friend who's a black belt in something.
That's a good point about safety, Dio. It's always important to be mindful wherever you are. But even with safety concerns, it's fascinating how people still find ways to come together and enjoy themselves. It just shows that the human need for connection and entertainment is universal, even if the forms it takes are so diverse. For our listeners thinking about visiting, remember to always research local customs and safety advice on sites like Jetofe. Before you jet off.
Absolutely, Mira. No one wants to end up as the punchline of a travel disaster story. Except me, I thrive on those. But when you compare the two, Afghanistan's evening scene is deeply rooted in quiet community and traditional arts, often within private or separative spaces. Papua New Guinea, in its non-urban settings, is more about vibrant, communal celebrations that are very public and tied to cultural identity. Two vastly different interpretations of entertainment.
Right? And imagine the storytelling differences. In Afghanistan, it might be an ancient epic or a personal anecdote over tea. In Papua New Guinea, it's the oral histories passed down through generations, often accompanied by music and dance, telling the tales of their ancestors. Well, it's living history unfolding right before your eyes. So, no, you won't find a stand-up comedy club with open mic nights in either. But you'll find deep, rich experiences that resonate far longer than a fleeting club beat.
A fleeting club beat. I once had a club beat resonate so long I still hear it when I try to sleep. Ouch. But you're right, Mira. The entertainment value here isn't about volume or flash. It's about authenticity and cultural immersion. It forces you to rethink what nightlife truly means. It's not just about what's available, it's about what's cherished. Aha! And on that profound note, let's keep things moving. And don't forget to like this video on YouTube if you're enjoying our unique perspective.
Speaking of family-friendly spaces, let's dive into Afghanistan. You might not immediately think adventure playground when you hear that name, but what they lack in theme parks, they more than make up for in the sheer strength of family bonds. Imagine kids learning life skills from their grandparents, not from a YouTube tutorial. Ooh, it's like a living, breathing history lesson every single day. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Wouldn't you say that's pretty special?
Mira, you always find the silver lining, don't you? Living, breathing history lesson. I can picture little Hamid trying to fix a leaky roof at age 6, while his grandpa offers encouragement with a sturdy stick. Whoa, definitely a different kind of children's activity than my own childhood, which mostly involved trying to convince my mom that my mashed potatoes were actually mashed clouds. But seriously, when we talk about Afghanistan, it's about resilient families, often in challenging circumstances.
Oh, come on, Neo. My mashed potatoes story involved pretending they were mountains for my toy cars, so don't even start. But you've got a point. While formal entertainment might be sparse, the emphasis on extended family and communal support is huge. Children grow up with a village full of aunties and uncles, learning traditional stories and helping with daily tasks, which builds an incredible sense of belonging. Well, that's a kind of family-friendly environment you just can't buy, can you?
That's true, Mira. And from an observational standpoint, this communal upbringing fosters a resilience you don't often see in more individualistic societies. Kids aren't just playing, they're contributing, learning from example. Which is a stark contrast to some places where children's activities means handing them a tabletin for fewer playgrounds. I hope. But on the flip side, them a tabletin telling them to quietly entertain themselves. Ouch. But on the flip side, access to safe, structured play areas or even consistent schooling can be incredibly limited.
Oops. Okay, let's not make it sound like a punishment to learn a trade at 7. But switching gears slightly, if Afghanistan focuses on deep-rooted family and community, what about Papua? Imagine a whole different kind of adventure. There may be kids learning to fish with their bare hands or climbing trees, but are taller than skyscrapers. I mean, talk about hands-on experience, right?
Aha! You're thinking like a true adventurer, Mia. In Papua New Guinea, children's activities often means growing up surrounded by breathtaking, sometimes wild nature. Whoa, imagine your playground being a rainforest or a coral reef. Kids are integrated into tribal life, learning survival skills, traditional dances, and storytelling from a very young age. There's less emphasis on formal, Western-style entertainment and more on practical knowledge passed down through generations.
Wow, that sounds like something straight out of an adventure movie. Oh, so, while one might have children helping with farming, the other has them exploring incredible natural landscapes. It really highlights how diverse family-friendly can be across the globe. For children in PNG, being surrounded by such rich biodiversity must spark endless curiosity. Plus, I bet their traditional dances are way more fun than any TIKTOK challenge.
So, I think that we can roger that. Mira. Though, I can just picture a future PNG elder attempting a TIKT, IK. And let's be honest. Both countries face challenges in providing structured educational opportunities for all children. While the informal learning is valuable, formal schooling is still crucial. But the sense of community in both. Whether it's the tight inestesteni combined within the
Absolutely. And both environments emphasize respect for elders and cultural heritage, which are priceless lessons for kids. Ooh. Whether it's storytelling around a fire or helping with daily tasks, children are integral to the family unit. It reminds me that family-friendly isn't just about nurturing belonging and shared experiences. Well, don't forget, if you're planning your next family adventure, or just curious about travel, check out Ofei for more insights.
Indeed, Mira. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. It's the only way to ensure more of Mira's endless enthusiasm and my insightful sarcasm makes it to your screens. So, in both Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, the family-friendly environment isn't about luxury amenities, but about fundamental human connection and traditional ways of growing up. Quite a concept for us modern folks, isn't it?
It really is, Leo. Oh, it's a reminder that no matter where you are, family and community are at the heart of raising happy kids. All right, Leo. Since we're diving deep into the complexities of different nations, let's talk about something incredibly important and often quite sensitive. The LGBT-friendly atmosphere. And today, we've got a pair of countries where this topic's landscape is, shall we say, particularly challenging.
Challenging is one way to put it. Ouch! When you mention Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea in the same breath as LGBT-friendly, my sarcastic meter starts going off the charts. It's like asking if a cactus is a comfy pillow. It's like asking if a cactus is a comfy pillow. I mean, talk about a contrast to, say, Ibiza.
You're right. It's definitely not a beach resort for rainbow flags. Oh, but still, every country has its story, even if it's one of immense struggle. In Afghanistan, for instance, we're looking at a deeply conservative society where Sharia law plays a huge role. It's not just a matter of social disapproval. It's legally dangerous to be openly LGBT.
Dangerous is an understatement. We're talking about severe legal penalties, sometimes even the death penalty. I remember reading about it and thinking, well, that escalated quickly. Ouch! It's not just a don't ask, don't tell situation, it's a don't even think about it scenario. Imagine trying to host a pride parade there, you'd have more security than a diamond heist.
No, definitely not the fun kind. Ouch. And that's where the heart of the issue lies. Beyond the legal framework, social acceptance is extremely low. It's Not just about what's written in law, but how people live and interact. What are your thoughts on that, Leo?
My thoughts are that even the most subtle expressions of individuality can be met with extreme prejudice. It's a place where privacy is a luxury, and open expression is practically an act of defiance. Imagine trying to explain drag race to someone there. Whoa! They'd probably think it was some sort of military drill. But on a serious note, it truly highlights the importance of places where people can be themselves without fear.
Absolutely. And that's something we often take for granted. Oh, now, shifting gears to Papua New Guinea. While it's a completely different cultural context, the situation for LGBT individuals is also very complex and challenging. Here, we're talking about inherited colonial era laws that criminalize same-sex sexual acts.
Colonial era laws. The gift that keeps on giving, right? Ouch. It's like someone left a dusty old rulebook from another century and everyone just kept reading from it. So while it's not the exact same legal system as Afghanistan, the outcome for LGBT people's safety and rights is similarly grim. No vibrant pride events or rainbow crosswalks popping up there either, I presume.
Not openly, no. Ouch. The social stigma is profound, and discrimination is widespread. While the penalties might not always be as extreme as in Afghanistan, the constant threat of legal action in society or low ostracization creates a very hostile environment. It's a different flavor of difficult, but still difficult. I'm certain that our listeners who value human rights would agree with me here.
Different flavor of difficult too. You've got knack for finding the poetic in the painful mirror. I imagine trying to find an LGBT-friendly cafe in Port Moresby would be like trying to silent comedians convention. You might be looking for a very, very long time. And the irony is, many of these societies value community and tradition so much, yet they struggle to extend that same warmth to everyone.
It truly is. And that's why these discussions are so crucial. Even if we're talking about places where progress feels painfully slow, it's about acknowledging the realities faced by individuals. It reminds us why supporting global LGBT rights is so vital. If you're passionate about these issues, please make sure to check out organizations working on this.
Indeed. And it's a stark reminder that what some of us consider basic rights like existing openly are still a distant dream for others. For our listeners, if you have any thoughts or experiences on how different cultures approach these deeply personal aspects, feel free to share them in the comments section on YouTube. We'd love to hear diverse perspectives.
It's all about fostering understanding, isn't it? Even in the most challenging situations, there's always a glimmer of hope for change, however small. And who knows, maybe one day, the cactus will indeed be a comfy pillar.
I wouldn't bet my coffee fund on it, but I appreciate the optimism, Mira. My brain is already drafting a stand-up routine about the sheer absurdity of some of these laws. But for now, let's just say these two countries have quite a journey ahead in truly embracing the rainbow.
A very long journey. And remember, you can always learn more about various global topics, including social dynamics, on Jet Off AI.
Absolutely. And if you think this conversation sparks a new perspective, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We're here to make you think and occasionally make you chuckle.
You know, Lear, there's something truly special about hospitality. It's like a universal language, even if the words are different. It's that feeling of someone saying, "Come in, you are safe here," or "Have a cup of tea, you look tired." For me, it's what truly connects us across cultures. What do you think about that?
I agree, Mira. But sometimes that cup of tea comes with a side of intense observation. Like, are they genuinely welcoming, or just curious about why you're carrying a backpack that looks like it's seen 3 continents under small war? On our current topic, hospitality and attitudes towards foreigners, let's talk about Afghanistan. Now, when I hear Afghanistan, my sharp-eyed traveler brain immediately thinks of resilience and incredibly strong traditions. Wow.
Oh, you're right, Leah. Despite all the challenges, Afghan hospitality, known as MEH Man nor was I, is legendary. It's ingrained in their culture. Guests are literally seen as a blessing from God.
That's a powerful point, Mira. It's often in places with less material wealth that you find the most generous spirits. I'm certain that our listeners living in Afghanistan would agree with me. From my observations, you might be invited into someone's home for tea or a meal almost immediately. It's a matter of honor for them to host a guest, sometimes even going into debt to ensure their guest is comfortable. That kind of self-sacrifice for a stranger is something many of us in the West probably can't fully grasp.
Exactly. It's less about what they have and more about the spirit of giving. Ooh, you'd find yourself sitting on a two-shat on the floor, sharing them burdens, Q or Ma. And feeling like you've been part of the family for years. There's a joke: if an Afghan offers you something, take it. Because if you refuse too many times, they might actually think you don't like them. It's all about making you feel accepted, truly.
Sounds like me at a buffet take-it-all, just in case someone thinks I'm not enjoying myself. But speaking of different kinds of welcome, let's shift our mental compass 10,000 miles southeast to Papua New Guinea. Now, this is a place with hundreds of distinct tribes and languages, a cultural mosaic. Whoa. Their approach to foreigners can be, let's say, uniquely layered.
Oh, Papua New Guinea, the land of the unexpected. I've always been fascinated by its vibrant tribal cultures. While I've heard they can be quite wary of outsiders due to their history, I've also read about incredible warmth once trust is established. It's like they have a secret handshake for friendship. Maybe it involves a dance or a pig feast.
A pig feast, definitely. From what I gather, initial encounters in more remote areas might be met with intense curiosity, perhaps even a bit of suspicion, but once you show respect for their customs, the wariness often melts into genuine hospitality. Wow. I once heard about a traveler who was invited to a Sing Sing festival, and despite the initial language barrier, they were treated like royalty, even given a traditional headdress. That's quite the welcome.
Ooh, it's like they're saying, we see you, we accept you, now dance with us. I imagine it's a culture where actions speak louder than words, especially when you're trying to understand dozens of different dialects. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have any of you experienced a Sing Sing or shared Nan in Afghanistan? We'd love to hear it in the comments.
Good point, Mira. It's less about a formal welcome committee and more about showing genuine interest and respect. In Papua New Guinea, understanding local customs regarding everything from gift giving to personal space is crucial. Oops. You might find yourself in a village where generosity is paramount, and if you offer a small gift, it might be reciprocated tenfold. It's not just a transaction, it's building a bond. And remember to check out Jet Off AI for more details on cultural nuances for your next big adventure.
Absolutely. I bet it makes you realize how much we overcomplicate things sometimes. Whether it's the deep-seated honor of Afghan hospitality or the earned warmth of Papua New Guinea's tribes, it reminds you that human connection is a powerful thing. Wow. It's all about meeting people halfway, isn't it? If you're open, you'll find an open door, or at least a very interesting story. Moving on from all the talk about ancient ruins and mysterious dances, let's look at something a bit more well-wired: internet infrastructure and digital facilities. Ooh, I mean, how else would we even be sharing these incredible stories with our amazing listeners if not for the magic of the internet, right?
Magic, Mira? Or maybe just a tangled mess of cables and caffeine-fueled engineers, depending on the country. But you're right, it's pretty essential, even for my late-night meme scrolling. Afghanistan? Now there's a place where wired wonders might mean something different than smart cities. My guess is we're not talking about widespread 5G here, are we? I'm certain our listeners living there or who've traveled there would agree it's a bit more of a challenge.
Aha! Leo, always with the keen observation. While it might not be a smart city hub just yet, Afghanistan has seen some interesting growth, primarily in mobile internet, believe it or not. Well, imagine connecting to the world from a place with such complex history. It's mostly 3G, maybe some 4G in urban areas, but still, people are finding ways to get online, stay connected, and even, dare I say, maybe stream some of our podcasts. Ooh.
Hunting for a signal, I've been there, Mira. Usually while trying to upload a particularly scathing review of a bland hotel coffee. But with Afghanistan, the challenges are immense rugged terrain, security issues that make building infrastructure a nightmare, and let's not forget power outages. Ouch! It's less about choosing your internet provider and more about, does the internet even exist here today? I've heard stories of people trekking miles just to find a signal hotspot.
Were you right about the trek, Leo? That's dedication, or maybe just really wanting to see that cat video you heard about. But seriously, the resilience is inspiring. Think about it in so many hurdles. The internet becomes a lifeline for education, communication with family abroad, and even small businesses. It's not just entertainment, it's a bridge. I mean, if you want to see how innovative people can be with limited resources, Afghanistan offers incredible examples. Whoa, now let's move on to our second country, Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea, huh? My initial thought is that if Afghanistan's terrain is rugged, PNG's is like a wild, untamed digital beast with too many islands and dense jungles. So I imagine internet access is also a bit of a treasure hunt, perhaps involving canoes instead of just walking. It's not just about wires, it's about getting those wires through swamps and over mountains, dodging a few exotic creatures along the way. I bet our friends at Getafe would have some fascinating data on the sheer cost of Connect Getafe.
Oh, Leo, you always make it sound like an Indiana Jones movie. While I'm sure there aren't actual digital booby traps, you're spot on about the geographical hurdles. PNG heavily relies on satellite internet in many remote areas, which, as we know, can be expensive and sometimes a bit slow. But they've been making strides, like with the Coral Sea Cable system, which aims to boost connectivity to Australia and the Solomon Islands. Oh. Imagine the joy of getting faster internet after years of dial-up speeds of golden ticket.
A golden ticket, indeed. Or perhaps for me, a truly robust, uninterrupted Wi-Fi signal at a local cafe. Ah, that's the real treasure. But with PNG, the digital divide isn't just about geography, it's also about affordability, the digital literacy. Even if the infrastructure improves, if people can't afford the devices or data, or don't know how to use them, the benefits remain out of reach. And I imagine that means digital nomad hubs aren't exactly Cuzzle.
Oh, I'd watch that too, Leo. I'd even bring the popcorn and maybe some bug spray, just in case. But you raise a really important point about digital literacy. It's not enough to build the roads. You need to teach people how to drive on them safely and effectively. Both Afghanistan and PNG are in fascinating stages of digital evolution, where every small step feels like a giant leap. Oh, from our perspective, sitting here with our studio internet, it's easy to take it for granted. So, next time you're effortlessly streaming your favorite show on YouTube, maybe send a little for YouTube.
True, Mira, very true. It puts my complaints about a buffering cat video into perspective. So, to sum it up on internet infrastructure and digital facilities for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, we're looking at two nations making commendable efforts despite monumental challenges. Primarily mobile internet growth in Afghanistan, battling terrain instability, and satellite reliance in PNG, tackling island logistics and affordability.
Absolutely, Leo. It's a testament to human ingenuity and the universal desire to connect. So, if you're a digital explorer or just someone who appreciates a good Wi-Fi signal, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. So we're diving into the glorious world of retail therapy, even in the most unexpected corners of the globe. When I think of shopping opportunities in Afghanistan, my mind immediately conjures up images of vibrant, bustling bazaars, brimming with handcrafted treasures. I can almost smell the spices and hear the friendly haggling. Wow. It feels like less of a shopping trip and more of a grand adventure. What about you, Leo? Are you picturing a grand mall? Are you also seeing a marketplace filled with stories?
Well, Mira, I'm imagining less of a grand mall and more of a grand challenge to find a decent cup of coffee. But you're right. When it comes to Afghanistan, we're talking traditional markets, places like Manda Wi in Kabul. You'd find exquisite carpets, gorgeous textiles, maybe some lapis lazuli that screams, I'm more than just a pretty stone. I have history. Aha! The price-performance balance there is all about your bargaining skills, isn't it? You go in thinking you're getting a deal, and they're thinking you're getting a deal.
A negotiation dance. I love that. Imagine me trying to salsa my way to a better price for a hand-woven rug. Oops. I'd probably end up buying it out of sheer awkwardness, but truly, for unique artisanal items, the value for money in these Afghan markets can be incredible. You're not just buying a product, you're buying a piece of culture or story. And speaking of unique, when we shift our gaze to Papua New Guinea, are we talking about similar bustling markets? Or is it a completely different retail landscape?
Whoa, Mira! Going from carpets to Papua New Guinea's shopping scene is like going from a cozy armchair to a jungle trek. You're definitely not finding any mall culture there, unless you count a few small shops in Port Moresby. The real gems are in the local markets and roadside stalls. Think intricate wood carvings, unique tribal masks, and the iconic Billumbag's hand-woven masterpieces that could carry your snacks, your secrets, or even a small, confused chicken.
The chicken in the Billumbag. You always have a way of painting the most vivid pictures, Leo. But you've hit on a crucial point: logistics. For PNG, that remote beauty comes with a price tag, especially for everyday items. I'm certain all listeners know the feeling of a remote items to charge all too well. So, while you might find a truly authentic artifact, you might also find that your favorite brand of granola costs an almond a leg. It really makes you appreciate the ease of shopping, doesn't it?
Indeed, Mira. A small price to pay for the authentic experience of paying double for imported toothpaste. But on the flip side, local produce in PNG is usually quite affordable. You might not find a 5-star dining experience, but you'll find fresh, local ingredients that put your supermarket organic section to shame. Wow. The value for money on those unique cultural items like the Billumbags you mentioned is excellent, assuming you're not paying tourist trap prices.
I'm already envisioning your stand-up routine about trying to haggle for a ceremonial mask. It's just not going to match my outfit. Can I get it for half price? Oops. But really, Leo, it highlights how different shopping can be beyond our usual experience. In Afghanistan, it's about the traditional craft and the vibrant market interaction, where the performance of bargaining is part of the charm. In Papua New Guinea, it's about connecting with truly indigenous art and local sustenance, even if it means those imported snacks are a luxury.
Absolutely, Mira. It's not about comparing an iPhone, it's comparing a locally sourced, hand-carved wooden bowl to an imported plastic one. The quality in these contexts often refers to authenticity, traditional craftsmanship, and the story behind the item, not necessarily mass-produced perfection. Or the story behind the item, not necessarily mass-produced perfection. Both countries offer unique treasures, but you won't be browsing aisles for buy one get one free deals. So, if you're looking for that kind of shopping.
Alright, so from discussing how much coffee we need to survive a Monday, we're now jumping into something truly vibrant, festivals and concert opportunities. Oh, and today we're looking at Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. Wow, talk about a cultural kaleidoscope, right?
A kaleidoscope, Mira. Or maybe a surprise box where you're not entirely sure what glitter is going to jump out at you. You know, when I think of Afghanistan, my mind immediately goes to the deep historical roots and the power of tradition. It's not exactly about stadium concerts, is it?
Well, not stadium concerts in the Western sense, no, but absolutely rich in tradition. Oh, imagine now, you see, the Persian New Year. It's a huge celebration, marking spring with family gatherings, special meals, and traditional music and poetry. It's less about a mosh pit and more about a joyful, collective renewal.
You're right, Mira. It's more about the ancient rhythms of life. Think about BUZ Kashi, their national sport. It's not just a sport, it's a spectacle, a festival in itself. Horsemen battling for a goat carcass sounds like my Monday morning commute, honestly. But seriously, it's a powerful display of horsemanship, community, and tradition. For more insights into these cultural trends. These insights could have been possible without Jet-Off by referring to cultural trends.
Oh, Leo, you and your commutes. Oops. But speaking of powerful displays, Papua New Guinea sings are absolutely mind-blowing. Wow. Imagine hundreds of tribes, each with their own unique costumes, dances, and songs, all coming together for days of celebration. It's like the biggest, most colorful family reunion ever. And no-go carcasses involved, I promise.
No-go carcasses, I'm slightly disappointed. That sounds like pure, unadulterated cultural immersion. I bet the outfits alone are a full-time job. I'm imagining feathered headdresses so tall they require their own zip code. It's a world away from the subtle beauty of Afghan poetry, isn't it?
It is, but both are incredibly vibrant. In Afghanistan, while public music and dance have faced challenges, the spirit of storytelling and traditional music, like the rabab, persists often in private gatherings. Oh, it's about resilience and keeping culture alive. It makes you realize how precious those shared moments are, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Mira. It's about the deep-seated cultural pulse that beats regardless of external pressures. It's a subtle defiance through celebration and quiet joy. It's a shout its joy from the mountaintops with events like the Mount Haiban Show or the Goroka Show. Wow, imagine trying to capture all that vibrancy in one YouTube short. You'd need a super wide-angle lens in about a week. And if you're watching this on YouTube, definitely search for these shows. Your eyeballs will thank you.
Oh, you totally should. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying this deep dive. Speaking of deep dives, Papua New Guinea's festivals often have this incredible connection to nature and ancestral spirits. It's not just entertainment, it's a spiritual experience, a way to pass down knowledge. Well, I heard some festivals even involve elaborate canoe races, where the canoes themselves are works of art. Ooh.
Canoe races, ancestral spirits. Sounds like the kind of festival where my coffee wouldn't just be a drink, it'd be an offering. Oops. It's a stark contrast to the more introspective cultural expressions you'd find in Afghanistan, where celebrations like Eid al-Fitr are deeply personal and community-focused after a period of fasting. It's a time for family charity and reflection.
It's a beautiful contrast, isn't it? One so outwardly expressive and colorful, the other rich in internal meaning and community bonds, but both ultimately celebrate what it means to be human, to connect. Oh, for those planning to visit or understand these places, knowing about these cultural calendars is crucial. And if you're ever looking for detailed travel guides that respect these cultural nuances, you know where to go. Jet Alfea has got you covered. Well.
Yes, because understanding the pulse of a place means understanding its celebrations. My friends often get lost trying to figure out local customs. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. Concerts, as we understand them, might be rare in Afghanistan right now, but the traditions of music and poetry are timeless and cherished. Oh, it's like a secret symphony that echoes through generations.
What a lovely way to put it, Leo. And in Papua New Guinea, while there might not be pop stars touring, the Sing Sings are definitely the biggest lit performances you'll ever see. Wow. It's a true celebration of identity, something we could all learn from. So, whether it's a quiet gathering around poetry or a vibrant tribal dance, cultural events unite people in profound ways.
Indeed, Mira. And as much as I love a good stand-up show, I think a Sing Sing might just have me doing an unplanned dance routine. Oops. Or at least making some notes for a new bit about feathered hats and communal coffee offerings.
You know, Leo, there's something truly wild about diving headfirst into a new language. It's like your brain suddenly has to do a three-ring circus act, juggling new sounds and meanings. For our next linguistic adventure, we're off to Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. My tongue's already tying itself in knots just thinking about it.
Three-ring circus is one way to put it. I call it more like trying to herd 800 cats with a single piece of string, especially when you consider Papua New Guinea. My brain needs its morning coffee just to process English, let alone a symphony of new sounds. Ouch! So, for anyone heading to Afghanistan, you're looking primarily at Darien Pashto, right? Not exactly hello, how are you? In a tourist phrasebook.
Absolutely. Dari and Pashto are the main languages in Afghanistan, both with beautiful, rich histories. Wow, while formal language schools might not be as widespread or accessible as in, say, a European capital, the real school, there is pure immersion. Imagine learning through everyday conversations, trying to haggle for spices in a bazaar, or sharing stories over a cup of tea. It's challenging, but so rewarding, don't you think? You're basically getting a master's degree in human connection.
I'm picturing myself trying to haggle for a souvenir which turns out to be a goat, all because my Pashto pronunciation was off. Oops. No, I'm certain that our listeners living in Afghanistan would agree with me that trying to master the nuances of a new script and entirely different phonetic sounds without a robust support system can feel like climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops. It's less about finding a very patient local who doesn't mind listening to you butcher their ancient tongue.
Well, speaking of linguistic Mount Everestess, let's glide over to Papua New Guinea. Whoa. Forget 2 or 3 languages, Leo. This place boasts over 800 indigenous languages. It's like every valley decided to invent its own secret code for... Hello? Please pass the salt. How do you even begin to approach learning the local language when there are literally hundreds? Ooh.
See, this is why I need a strong coffee and a good sense of humor before I even consider packing my bags. My observational skills would be overwhelmed. 800 languages. That's not a linguistic challenge, that's a global prank. I can just imagine landing and asking, "Excuse me, which language should I learn to order a coffee without offending someone from the next village?" I'd probably end up speaking English only in a corner, mumbling to myself. Ouch!
Teo Pisin, a Creole language, is widely spoken and often the most practical starting point for newcomers. It's actually quite fascinating, combining elements of English, German, and indigenous languages. Oh, it's like the universe knew it had to throw us a bone amidst the linguistic kaleidoscope. Learning Tok Pisin provides a gateway to communication across different communities, and it's generally considered easier to pick up than a highly complex indigenous language.
So, Tok Pisin is the linguistic easy button then? Aha! That's good to know for future reference, assuming I ever try to explain a stand-up routine to someone who doesn't understand the concept of irony in 800 different dialects. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you're surrounded by that many languages, do you even bother trying to learn more than the basic lingua franca, or do you just give up and communicate through interpretive dance? Asking for a friend, obviously.
Knowing you, Leo, you'd probably create a whole new language based on coffee-stained napkins and sarcastic glances. But seriously, whether it's Afghanistan or Papua New Guinea, the opportunity in language learning is often tied to how much you engage with the local culture. It's not about textbooks. It's about sharing a meal, laughing at a joke, or navigating a busy market.
I suppose my survival Tok Pisin would definitely be focused on phrases like, "Where's the nearest coffee?" And, "Please, no spiders in my bed." Oops! While I appreciate the sentiment of cultural immersion, my comedic talent often gets lost in translation. For anyone planning a trip, or just wanting to understand more about global cultures, you can always find more details and resources on Jet Off AI. It's easier than trying to learn 800 languages before breakfast.
That's very true, Leo. For those of you watching on YouTube, if you have any experience learning a language in a country with multiple dialects, share your stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Moving on to a topic that's super important for anyone with an adventurous spirit. 25th, safety and comfort for women travelers in Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. You know, sometimes the world makes these destinations sound like they're from another planet. Wow, but I always think every place has its layers. What are your initial thoughts, Leo, before you get too dramatic?
My initial thought is, pass me another coffee. My initial thought is, pass me another coffee. Mira, you always find the silver lining even in a storm cloud. These aren't exactly Netflix and chill destinations for women. If we're being brutally honest, my internal monologue is already drafting a stand-up bit about packing a full suit of armor just to get groceries. But seriously, yes. Layers.
See, that's exactly why we need to talk about it. Because there's a difference between hard and impossible, right? In Afghanistan, for instance, the cultural landscape means that women travelers often need to dress very conservatively and be accompanied by a male guardian in many areas. It's a deeply rooted traditional society. Not exactly a place for a spontaneous solo hiking trip in shorts and a tank top.
You're being very polite about it, Mira. A spontaneous solo hiking trip in shorts in some parts of Afghanistan would redefine adventure travel in ways most insurance companies wouldn't cover. Ouch! My understanding is that culturally, women are revered but also protected, sometimes to an extent that restricts movement and independence, especially for foreign women trying to navigate it. You really can't just blend in unless you've got a very convincing beard.
Oh, you. But that's a key point for blending in part. In many urban centers, there's more of a nuanced understanding. But outside of those bubbles, it's about respecting local customs. Wow! And let's not forget the sheer joy of human connection. I've heard stories of incredible hospitality from Afghan women despite all the challenges. They might not be hitting the dance floor, but they'll share a cup of chai and a story.
Yes, the stories are plentiful. Aha! Over in Papua New Guinea, it's a whole different flavor of challenging. The cultural diversity is mind-blowing. Hundreds of tribal groups, each with their own customs and languages. Wow! But unfortunately, safety for women is a serious concern there, with high rates of gender-based violence reported. It's not about dress code so much as it is about pervasive social issues. My brain is going. How do I make a joke about navigating societal complexities without sounding like a total complexities?
Oops. See, that's why we have to be so careful. But your point on pervasive social issues is spot on. It's not just a tourist thing, it's a deep societal challenge they're facing. For women travelers, it means being acutely aware of your surroundings, avoiding solo travel in remote areas, and probably sticking to organized tours or reliable local contacts. It's less about, can I wear a miniskirt, more about, can I wear a miniskirt, more about, can I walk alone after dark?
Exactly. And the crime rates in places like Port Moresby can be pretty alarming. Whoa! It's less about offending cultural sensibilities and more about basic security precautions against opportunism. Think keeping your phone in a front pocket, wearing your backpack forward in crowd zoo. The kind of stuff I reluctantly do even in my own city when I've had too much coffee and get disoriented. For women in PNG, it's about a constant heightened awareness, which isn't exactly a recipe for a relaxing holiday.
No, it's definitely not a relaxing holiday vibe. But I think it's important for our listeners to understand that these aren't just no-go zones. They're places that require meticulous planning, respectful engagement, and a deep understanding of local dynamics. For instance, in both countries, having a trusted local guide or companion can dramatically change the experience for women travelers. It's like having a human GPS and cultural translator all rolled into one.
A human GPS who hopefully also knows where the best street food is. But you're right, Mira. The reality is often more nuanced than the headlines suggest. It's about being informed and not romanticizing or demonizing. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have any women traveled to these regions and can share their insights on safety and comfort? We'd love to hear it in the comments section on You to be respectful.
Ooh, yes, absolutely. And for anyone considering such a journey, Jet Off AI is a fantastic resource for researching travel advisories and getting practical tips before you even think about packing. It's all about preparation, preparation, preparation. No amount of positive thinking will replace solid research.
True. If I tried to just think positively about getting through some of these places, I'd probably end up thinking myself into a ditch. Ouch! So, to sum it up, Afghanistan requires deep cultural sensitivity and adherence to strict conservative norms, often meaning accompanied travel. Papua New Guinea demands high vigilance against general crime and societal challenges for women. Neither is a casual jaunt for female solo travelers. But for those who do go, the experiences can be profound.
Aha! See, it's all about making informed choices. It's not about fear, it's about respect and smarts. And you know, sometimes the most challenging journeys are the ones that teach us the most. Whoa. Just make sure those lessons don't involve losing a limb or your passport. Let's talk about something incredibly important, but often overlooked until you actually need it. Legal system, individual rights and freedoms. I mean, who thinks about the Constitution when they're planning a trip, right? I certainly don't. Until I'm halfway there and realize I accidentally got a novelty world peace passport. Anyway, we're diving into Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea today, which have, let's just say, quite distinct approaches to law.
Distinct is one way to put it, Mira. Wow. I was just about to say, If your world peace passport actually works, let me know. I've been trying to get through airport security with a coffee-stained napkin that says VIP access, and it hasn't quite caught on. But seriously, legal system, individual rights and freedoms, it's like the operating system of a country. You want it to be efficient, secure, and hopefully not riddled with pop-up ads for things you didn't ask for.
It certainly is, Leo. And speaking of heavy, trying to understand some of these legal frameworks feels like trying to read a menu written in invisible ink after a long flight. Afghanistan's legal system is primarily based on Islamic law, or Sharia, and that has some significant implications for individual rights, especially for women and minorities. Ouch! We've seen, Heartbreak Habik, a rollback of many freedoms that were slowly being established. Things like freedom of speech, assembly, and even simply showing your face in public are severely restricted.
Exactly, Mira. It's like going to a restaurant where the menu changes daily, and sometimes they just decide you're not allowed to order at all. Under the current regime, constitutional protections are, well, a theoretical concept rather than a practical reality. Any previous frameworks that offered some semblance of individual rights have been largely dismantled or are simply unenforced. It's not a place where you'd pack your megaphone for a spontaneous public address. Let's just say.
Oh, no, probably not. And that's a stark contrast to many places. But let's shift our gaze to Papua New Guinea. What a beautiful, diverse nation. Wow. Their legal system is quite different, drawing from a common law tradition inherited from Australia, but also heavily incorporating customary law. It's like having two chefs in the kitchen, one with a Michelin star and the other cooking with ancient family recipes passed down orally for generations. You'd hope they complement each other, right?
Or at least don't set the kitchen on fire trying to merge a souffle with a traditional earth oven stew. Papua New Guinea's constitution actually protects a wide array of individual rights, freedom of speech, assembly, movement, religion, you name it. On paper, it looks pretty solid. But, and this is where my sharp eye comes in, the implementation on the ground can be a bit more rustic. Ouch. Especially in the remote areas where customary law often takes precedence. It's like having a fancy, gilded instruction manual.
That's a great analogy, Leo. And it brings up an interesting point: what happens when customary law, which is often uncodified and varies greatly between communities, bumps up against those constitutional protections? Aha! For example, issues around land disputes or traditional marriage practices. Sometimes the two systems don't quite dance together in harmony, and women, unfortunately, can often bear the brunt of those conflicts. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who understand traditional legal systems think about this.
Indeed, Mira. It's like having two different rulebooks for the same game, and sometimes neither referee is quite sure which one to use. Corruption and issues with law enforcement are also persistent challenges in Papua New Guinea, further complicating access to justice. You might have a right on paper, but if you can't get it enforced, it's about as useful as a chocolate teapot, right? Oops. My point is, while the intent for individual freedoms is there constitutionally, the path to truly realizing them can be fraught with hurdles.
For anyone thinking about living or even just visiting, understanding these nuances is key. Wow. In Afghanistan, the legal and rights situation is severely constrained, particularly for specific groups. In Papua New Guinea, you have this fascinating blend of formal and customary law with constitutional rights in place, but challenges in their consistent application. It really highlights how diverse legal landscapes can be globally. Speaking of diverse, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more insights into fascinating countries.
Excellent plot, Mira. My agent couldn't have said it better. Oh, so, While one country faces a near absence of codified rights enforcement for many citizens, the other grapples with a complex dual system where modern constitutional ideals meet ancient community traditions. It's a tricky dance for both. If you think this is wrong, or if you have specific examples, please let us know in the comments. We definitely want to hear your thoughts.
Alright, Leo, when we talk about spa, healthy living, and relaxation, my brain usually conjures images of lavender-scented steam rooms and cucumber slices. But our next two countries, Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, they're going to give us a wildly different kind of wellness journey, aren't they? Well, I'm picturing something a little more rugged.
Rugged is one word for it, Mira. My mind goes straight to unconventional, and probably requires more than just a fluffy robe. We're certainly not talking about finding a 5-star resort offering bespoke deserts and exfoliation in Afghanistan, are we? Ouch! More like finding a moment of quiet reflection amidst, well, life.
Exactly. Speaking of quiet reflection, in Afghanistan, the idea of relaxation might less be about luxurious treatments and more about deeply rooted community and historical practices. Think traditional bathhouses or hammams, which have been a social hub for centuries. It's not just a wash, it's a social event, a place for conversations. Imagine catching up on the local gossip while getting a good scrub. Oh.
Right, a hammer. I can see myself trying to discreetly take notes for a stand-up routine while someone's scrubbing my back. And let's be real. In a country that's seen its share of tough times, the definition of healthy living leans heavily on resilience and community support, doesn't it? It's less about detox smoothies and more about strong tea with good company. You're not going to find a mindful mountain goat yoga class in Kabul, probably.
Mindful mountain goat yoga. Oops. That's a good one, Leo. But seriously, the mountains themselves in Afghanistan, like the Hindu Kush, offer their own kind of raw, untouched beauty. For some, perhaps a quiet moment in nature, away from the bustle, is the ultimate relaxation. It's a very different kind of reset, isn't it? I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would agree with me.
Agreed. It's less about structured wellness and more about existing in a way that provides calm. And then we pivot to Papua New Guinea. Now, their natural spot takes on a whole new meaning. Think volcanic hot springs, mud pools, maybe even a dip in a crystal clear river surrounded by the densest shrine forest on Earth. Wow, no, I'm not talking about a chlorinated resort pool.
Ooh, now that sounds like my kind of relaxation. Imagine soaking in a natural hot spring in the middle of a rainforest, listening to exotic birds and the actual steam rising around you. It's not just healthy living, it's living with nature deeply. For our YouTube audience, if you've ever experienced something like that, please let us know in the comments. I bet it's incredible.
I bet, though, knowing my luck, I'd probably find a particularly enthusiastic leech in that crystal clear river. Ouch! But yes, the indigenous healing practices and traditional herbal remedies that are centuries old, passed down through generations. It's a holistic approach where physical well-being is intrinsically linked to spiritual and community harmony. Not exactly green juice and Pilates.
No, probably more like wild Yemen ceremonial dance. But honestly, that's so beautiful. The idea that your well-being is connected to your entire community and the land around you, rather than just how many miles you run today. Wow. For someone like me who needs to move, those vast landscapes and rainforests would be an incredible way to stay active and feel rejuvenated. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this wild yam approach versus a meditation cushion approach.
Well, it certainly beats my usual relaxation method of staring blankly at a coffee cup for an hour. I can tell you, the thought of hiking through dense, untamed terrain in Papua New Guinea to find a serene waterfall or a healing mud bath does sound like an adventure. But I also imagine it comes with its own unique set of physical challenges. You probably need to be pretty fit to relax there. It's not exactly a walk to the corner store for a kombucha situation.
Oops. You're right, Leo. We're talking about a kind of healthy living that's a full body, full spirit engagement. From what I've heard, the emphasis on communal gatherings, traditional music, and storytelling in both countries also plays a huge role in mental and emotional well-being. It's a way to de-stress through connection. It's about being present, not just physically but socially and culturally.
Socially, unculturally present, absolutely. And in both places, I imagine the concept of spa and relaxation isn't about escaping reality, but more about embracing it, living in harmony with your surroundings, and drawing strength from tradition. It's a stark contrast to what many of us consider a typical spa day, which often involves escaping from everything.
So whether it's a shared cup of tea in a community hammock in Afghanistan, or a dip in a natural hot spring surrounded by untouched trine forest in Papua New Guinea, the path to healthy living and relaxation in these countries is deeply woven into their unique cultural tapestry and natural landscapes. Well, it's about finding peace, not just pampering. You guys can visit Chateau Fei for more insights into unique travel experiences like these. All right, Leo, let's look at a topic that touches the deepest parts of us, opportunities for religious and spiritual needs. Now, when we talk about Afghanistan, the spiritual landscape is profoundly shaped by Islam. For a vast majority, the faith isn't just a part of life, it is the very essence of daily existence, a guiding light for everything. It's truly a cornerstone.
Aye, cornerstone, Mira, or perhaps the entire building, foundation and all? I mean, when Islam is not just a religion, but also, let's say, the central operating system for the entire country. Opportunity takes on a very specific meaning. You're not exactly popping down to the Temple of Quantum Physics for a spiritual enlightenment workshop, are you? It's clear, defined. And for those outside that primary faith, wow, options can be a bit more limited.
Well, speaking of vastly different spiritual paths, let's hop over to Papua New Guinea, where things get wonderfully, vibrantly complex. Well, here, Christianity is dominant, but it often dances hand in hand with incredibly rich, traditional animist beliefs. Imagine celebrating Christmas with great joy, and then maybe offering a coconut to a river spirit the next day to ensure a good fishing season. It's a beautiful, intricate blend, don't you think?
A beautiful blend, Mira, or a spiritual buffet where you're not sure which plate to pick first. I picture someone in a church on Sunday singing hymns, and then by Tuesday they're politely asking a particularly ancient tree for its blessing before cutting it down. Excuse me, Mr. Oak, just need a little lumber for my new deck, if that's all right with your ancestral spirit. Aha! I'm actually curious what our listeners, especially those who visited, think about that unique mix. You can leave your thoughts on our YouTube channel.
It's all about community, Leo. In Papua New Guinea, churches aren't just for worship, they're vital social hubs, supporting education, health, and often providing a sense of unity in remote areas. And those traditional ceremonies, they reinforce cultural identity and social bonds in a powerful way. It's about belonging, finding your place and meaning, whether it's through a sermon or a traditional chant. I'm certain that our listeners looking for that deeper connection would agree. Ooh.
Right, community. And in Afghanistan, that community is pretty much a single-track mind when it comes to faith, isn't it? If your spiritual needs don't align perfectly well, opportunities might quickly become exit strategies or very quiet practices behind closed doors. Ouch! Meanwhile, in PNG, you can probably pick your spiritual adventure. Do I want to pray to a deity, or maybe just a particularly impressive rock formation that's been around for millennia?
You really are a creature of habit, Leo. But seriously, the contrast is stark. In Afghanistan, a singular, deeply entrenched faith provides a clear structure and a shared powerful for those who adhere to it. Wow. In Papua New Guinea, it's a vibrant tapestry of beliefs, offering a different kind of spiritual exploration, a mix and match approach that reflects its diverse cultures. Both aim to fulfill a human need, just in incredibly different ways, wouldn't you say?
Indeed, Mira. One offers a well-trodden path, the other a spiritual scavenger hunt. Either way, someone's looking for answers. And if those answers don't involve a good laugh, a decent cup of coffee, or at least a fascinating story to tell them out.
All right, Leo. We're diving into a topic that, if you're not careful, can get a bit serious. But we're going to keep it light and insightful: social equality, respect for minorities, and diversity. We're talking about Afghan and Papua New Guinea today. And I'm already buzzing with curiosity about how these two incredibly unique places navigate such complex issues. Wow! It's like comparing a delicate tea ceremony with a wild jungle drum circle, but both have their own rhythm, right?
Mira, you always find a way to make everything sound like a grand carnival. I admire that. But comparing tea ceremonies and drum circles for Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea's take on social equality, I'm already seeing some eyebrow-raising contrast, not exactly a unified rhythm. Oh, when I think about Afghanistan? Oh, when I think about Afghanistan? Especially recently, equality asterisky, if they're even on the menu.
Whoa, Leo, always cutting straight to the chase. That's exactly why we're here, to unpack those layers. Speaking of Afghanistan, you're right. The recent shifts have painted a very different picture for women and ethnic minorities. It's a challenging situation, to say the least, where the definition of equality has been drastically narrowed. We see a struggle for basic freedoms that many of us take for granted. Ouch! But even within those exit groups like the Pashtuns, Hassas Dolbs, Alwezbak Gobs, like Finjin Greeks.
Suppressed? Indeed. It's less a heavy blanket and more like a concrete slab, Mira. The ethnic diversity is undeniable, but the harmony and equality among them, particularly under the current rule, is a delicate dance, if it's even happening. Baha, from my perspective, restrict access to education or public life for half the population, or marginalize certain ethnic groups. You're looking at a fundamental dismantling of social equality, not just a shift.
Ah, a symphony of challenges. I love that, Leo. Well, since we've touched on Afghanistan's complexities, let's shift gears to Papua New Guinea. Well, over 800 indigenous languages, thousands of tribal communities, each with its own customs, traditions, and belief systems. It's almost mind-boggling how much variety there is in such a concentrated area.
Yes, a treasure trove where you might also encounter a few unexpected local interpretations of social harmony, Mira. Yes, while Afghanistan's challenges are often top-down, PNGs are frequently grassroots. Its diversity, while astonishing, also comes with tribal conflicts and issues around men rights and issues around land rights and resource distribution. It's less about a singular restrike of government. It's less about a singular restrictive government. Imagine hundreds of distribution. It's less about a singular restrictive government and merry laws and tynations among groups.
That's a fair point, Leo. Whoa. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. When a country has such incredible linguistic and tribal diversity, does that inherently make it more challenging to achieve universal social equality? In PNG, you have these rich traditions, but then you also have challenges like violence against women. And LGBT rights are certainly not as advanced as in some Western nations. Oops, it's not a blanket condemnation, but a recognition that celebrating diversity often means also confronting the difficult part.
Absolutely, Mira. It's the double-edged sword of deep tradition. The beauty of these distinct cultures in PNG can sometimes mean deeply ingrained social hierarchies or traditional practices that, to an outsider, might seem to contradict modern notions of equality. It's like admiring a beautifully carved wooden mask, then realizing it represents of equality. It's like admiring a beautifully carved wooden mask, then realizing it represents a very rigid social structure.
The beautiful, complicated tapestry of human societies. Wow. So, while Afghanistan wrestles with a centralized regime that often suppresses diversity and equality, Papua New Guinea grapples with managing its overwhelming internal diversity and tribal differences, which sometimes led to localized conflicts. It seems both countries, despite their vast differences, highlight just how complex social equality, respect for minorities, and diversity can be. It's a constant journey, not a destination, wouldn't you say? You know, Leo, when I think about taxes, my brain immediately goes to those little number puzzles we used to solve as kids. Except these puzzles actually have real-world consequences, especially for folks trying to make a new life somewhere. Today, we're diving into taxation, retirement, and social rights for long-term immigrants in places that are, let's just say, a tad different from your average suburban spreadsheet.
Mira, a spreadsheet would be a luxury in some of the places we're discussing. I imagine some tax forms in Afghanistan are just a polite request for a trying to promise not to cause trouble. Oh, when we talk about long-term immigrants there, it's less about calculating capital gains and more about navigating a system that's often, shall we say, fluid. There aren't exactly standardized pension plans like a 401k with matching contributions, are there?
Oh, you've got a point, Leo. But even in a fluid system, there's always a flow, right? For immigrants in Afghanistan, the formal tax structure, especially outside major cities, can be incredibly complex or even non-garcitsand, depending on who's in charge of the local bazaar. It's more about community contributions or informal levies. Wow. Imagine your tax advisor might be the local elder.
Or the guy with the biggest stick. Oops. Let's be real, Mira. A formal retirement plan for a long-term immigrant in Afghanistan is probably having a large, supportive family. And if you don't have one, well, your social rights are pretty much limited to what Tribe can offer. It's a raw, unfiltered kind of social safety net, if you can even call it that. Not exactly signing up for government-funded healthcare.
Well, speaking of safety nets, I always say that even a hand-made fishing net can catch some fish. Right. For long-term immigrants trying to make a home in Afghanistan, access to social services like education or healthcare is highly variable. It often depends on international aid organizations or their own ethnic and religious networks. Well, it's less about a government program and more about grassroots resilience. It's a lot to figure it out as you go in a very profound way.
Figure it out as you go is a kind way of saying good luck. Ouch! Moving from that, let's jump over to Papua New Guinea's approach, which I'm betting offers a slightly more formalized structure, though probably with its own unique brand of chaos. I once saw a tax notice there that looked like it had been delivered by a bird carrying it in its beak. For long-term immigrants, PNG does have an income tax system and even a goods and services tax. So, at least you know who to pay, theoretically.
Delivered by a bird. Well, Papua New Guinea, even with its breathtaking landscapes and diverse cultures, has a more recognizable system for long-term immigrants. If you're formally employed, you'll be contributing to taxes, and you might even be part of a superannuation scheme that's their version of a pension fund. It's not exactly a stroll in the park to navigate, but it's there.
Yes. It's there like a treasure map where half the landmarks are missing. Oops, for long-term immigrants in PNG. While there are formal superannuation funds, actually accessing them or ensuring consistent contributions can be a bureaucratic odyssey, especially if you're working in more remote areas or through informal channels. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you've tried to sort out your pension in PNG, please let us know in the comments.
That's a great question, Leo. I can only imagine the stories. Oh, but moving on to social rights in Papua New Guinea, long-term immigrants generally have access to public services like healthcare and education, especially if they're legally employed and contributing to the system. Wow, however, the quality and reach of these services can be limited, particularly outside the main urban centers. It's a bit like a buffet where some dishes are amazing and others are, well, still being prepared.
More like a buffet where the main course is occasionally missing and you have to forage for dessert. Ouch! While PNG has institutions, the practical reality for many long-term immigrants seeking consistent social support can be challenging due to infrastructure issues, remote populations, and varying enforcement. It's easy to get lost in the paperwork, and then sometimes just lost in the jungle. You might pay your taxes, but actually receiving your benefits is another adventure entirely.
So if you're a long-term immigrant, whether you're looking at Afghanistan's deeply communal, informal systems or Papua New Guinea's more formalized, but still challenging framework, understanding these taxation, retirement, and social rights is absolutely crucial. It really highlights how diverse the world is, and how important it is to do your homework before packing your bags. Wow, you're not just moving to a new country, you're adopting a whole new set of life rules. Ooh, well, after all the talk about places you can practically live in, let's explore something a little more, shall we say, niche? We're diving into the rate of meeting specific interests in some truly unique corners of the world of Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea. Oh, I'm already picturing something wild.
Mira, wild is one way to put it. You always find the most dramatic framing. I'm just here to observe if these specific interests involve dodging mountain goats or negotiating for a rare bird's feather. For Afghanistan, if your specific interest is, say, ancient history and archaeology, you're looking at a treasure trove of Silk Road heritage. Wow. From Hellenistic cities to Buddhist monasteries. It's like a history book exploded, but with more dust.
That's the spirit. Leo, I was just about to say something similar. Imagine a historical scavenger hunt. And for those with a passion for traditional crafts, Afghanistan offers an incredibly rich tapestry. From intricately woven carpets, I'm certain our Jetafaya listeners would agree. They're breathtaking to beautiful gemstone polishing. There's a deep legacy of artistry. It's not just a hobby, it's a living, breathing art form passed down through generations.
Living, breathing art form, Mira, you're practically writing a tourism brochure. My interest would be observing the intense bargaining that probably goes into acquiring one of those living, breathing carpets. Now, that's a performance that I can appreciate. Moving from the ancient, dusty paths to the incredibly green and, frankly, overwhelming landscapes of Papua New Guinea, the specific interests shift dramatically, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Whoa, Papua New Guinea is a completely different world. If your specific interest is biodiversity and natural wonders, you're hitting the jackpot. Oh, imagine birdwatching for birds of paradise that's not a myth, people, or diving among pristine coral warrior shipwrecks. Well, it's an adventurer's dream, a nature lover's paradise, a living documentary waiting to be filmed.
A living documentary where you might be the star running from a giant, unidentified insect. But you're right, the sheer uniqueness of PNG is astounding. For the truly niche enthusiast, how about ethnobating nor linguistics? Papua New Guinea boasts hundreds of distinct languages, some spoken by only a few hundred people. Imagine being the sole specialist in a language that practically no one else knows.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this would you rather learn a language spoken by a handful of people or uncover a lost historical artifact. Let us know in the comments below on YouTube. As for cultural immersion, PNG's tribal traditions and vibrant sing-sings are an incredible spectacle for anthropologists or anyone deeply interested in diverse human expression. Wow, it's a symphony of dance, music, and colorful attire.
And probably a symphony of sweat and humidity, knowing me. But yes, the cultural variety is unparalleled. For the less adventurous, shall we say, a specific interest might just be surviving the journey itself. Oops. But in all seriousness, both countries offer profound experiences for those with very specific, often academic or historically rooted interests. For the casual tourist looking for a club, it's probably a different story.
You're such a tease, Leo. But that's a fair point. If you're hoping for a book club or a knitting circle with weekly meetings, these might not be the easiest places. Yet, for those passionate about exploration, history, nature, or unique cultures, they present incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to engage deeply with very specific interests. Wow. It's about finding the adventure in the niche.
And avoiding any unexpected adventures involving oversized spiders. But it's true, if your passion lies in understanding deep cultural roots, ancient civilizations, or some of the world's last truly wild frontiers, then these countries offer an unparalleled rate of meeting specific interests, just perhaps not the kind you'd find on a typical flyer. Remember to hit that like button if you appreciate these off-the-beaten-path comparisons on Jetolfe. AS YouTube channel.
Yes, definitely like and subscribe. And hit that bell icon to catch our videos the moment they drop and be among the first to listen. We'd love for you to share your thoughts, comments, and critiques below. Reading and responding to them truly brightens our day. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with more. So until then, take care and see you in the next one. Warmest wishes from us.